Well, we've got 9 hours left in the global transmission, 30 hours that kicked off yesterday at 11 a.m. We end at 8 o'clock Central Time. Wow. Great job, crew. Great job, callers, all the great hosts, all the great guests. So much more coming up. We have huge developments inside the power structure of the New World Order, huge developments in France, huge developments on Obama caught spying on thousands of Americans during the election, totally illegal. All this is coming up. Al Gore's new film, the details of it have been leaked on Infowars.com. But first off, Paul Watson's new video, Dear Black People.
BuzzFeed is once again pushing race-baiting divisive crap and casual anti-white racism. So a dude on Twitter reacted to Netflix's Dear White People show with the following tweet.
Imagine if there was a show called Dear Black People.
Then this black dude called Reggie responded to that tweet with,
Dear black people, I'm sorry for our history of oppression and genocide.
This was such epic ownage that BuzzFeed devoted an entire article to it.
Yeah, Reggie sure showed him right.
Dear Black People, I'm sorry your skin color makes me see you as a threat.
Yeah, that probably has more to do with the fact that black people are way overrepresented in violent crime statistics and commit about half of homicides in America despite being only 13% of the population. Just saying. So Reggie told BuzzFeed,
I was trying to help them understand how the history of this country shaped racism to only go one way and that the double standard lacked historical context.
Right, so you want to talk about historical context. Okay, the very word slave is derived from Slav, Slavic white people who were taken as slaves by Muslims in Spain in the 9th century. For hundreds of years under the Barbary slave trade, over 1 million white Christian Europeans were abducted by Arabs. That's white people being enslaved by brown people. The Barbary slave trade was far more brutal than the transatlantic slave trade. Arabs also enslaved blacks and castrated young black boys so they couldn't have children, killing many of them in the process of amputating their scrotum and penis. Oh, but I don't see BuzzFeed or Reggie bitching and blaming Arabs living today for what their ancestors did hundreds of years ago. White people were the first in the world to legally end slavery. Reformers like William Wilberforce, who campaigned for the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833. White people also literally put their lives on the line to conduct raids in African countries to free black slaves from their Arab captors. Hundreds of thousands of white Americans died in a civil war partly to end slavery. There's your historical context. There are still 46 million people enslaved in the world today. The most ever in human history. They're enslaved in countries like India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Uzbekistan, and Qatar. Yeah, you'll notice none of those are white countries. There are also millions of black people still enslaved in Africa. Don't give a damn about that, do you, BuzzFeed? Listen, virtually every single racial group in history has been guilty of enslaving people from other racial groups or social castes. The contemporary narrative that only white people are to blame for slavery is not only totally historically inaccurate, it's also racist. Which is why BuzzFeed and a myriad of other leftist outlets and institutions push it. Because they're racist.
But reverse racism doesn't exist. Institutional power. Blah.
The major institutions of media and cultural power in the West are almost completely dominated and controlled by the left. The same left using institutional power to push anti-white racism, emboldening actual white supremacists and black supremacists and causing more racial tension. Stop lecturing everyone about historical context when you have no frigging idea whatsoever about the true historical context of slavery.
By the way, Paul just reported to me he got BuzzFeed to respond to revelations that the employees were plotting the murder of Donald Trump or promoting it. Well, we're 24 hours into the global transmission, but then I was thinking, well, we have that news show we do from 3 to 5 live, then the nightly news comes on, 7 o'clock. I talked to the crew. They just said, hey, most of us only had 3 hours sleep. Let's just go right through to 8 o'clock Central when the nightly news ends tonight live. That comes to like 34, 35 hours. Simply amazing. Again, I am your host, Alex Jones. Infowars.com is the besieged, hated site by tyrants globally. Prince Philip, I saw this in the Daily Mail last night, or yesterday afternoon, reportedly had some type of fit. And there was a big emergency at the palace. And then they announced this morning that he will be retiring from public life now in the next few months, which means if he gets better, they'll roll him out and say bye-bye, and then that's it. He's definitely flown over the cuckoo's nest. I'm sure I will by the time I'm 95 years old. But if you know about him, he was the Prince of Cyprus, a Greek prince, but not of Greek bloodline. He is a Transylvanian, Romanian, German heir to the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, even more royal than Queen Elizabeth II, but she was the British bloodline that was German itself. House of Windsor, fake name, they're Saxe-Coburg-Gothas. The top hat-wearing Nazi, and he was a Nazi. So was his cousin, Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands. Of course, the King of England before him, Edward VIII, you can Google Edward VIII meets with Hitler, was a Nazi. And the Nazis had planned to set up the European Union. That was a plan that Hitler announced in 1939. He also announced it in 1938 as well, but officially announced it in 39 at the World Olympics. So this goes on and on and on. Hitler invented himself the Olympic symbol of the rings. He invented the Volkswagen. He drew it. He designed it, the engine, everything. He also designed a lot of the looks and sleek designs on Wolfpack submarines. Hitler was a bad guy, but he did win the German Congressional Medal of Honor, Iron Cross First Class and Iron Cross Second Class. They had like 10 different classes of those. And that's why he was admired by the German military, because he was like an Audie Murphy of World War I. Just interesting things people should know. But again, just search engine, Edward VIII, King of England, with Adolf Hitler. There are hundreds of photos, and there's the Queen of England, came out a few years ago as a young girl, hailing Hitler. But there is the King of England with his American wife, and they later claimed he advocated because he had an American wife. No, that's not why. It's a fact. There was a treaty with Germany signed in 1939 by Neville Chamberlain, a secret treaty to double down with the United States in an attack on Russia. And that's when he broke his deal, well, I guess in 41, and launched Operation Barbarossa against the Russians. But the United States by then broke the secret treaty, and so did the British, broke the secret treaty. The Vice-Fuhrer, then Rudolf Hess, parachuted in. He was a fighter ace from World War I, parachuted in from his fighter bomber over one of the main palaces with the treaty. He was then locked up for life in the Tower of London, right by London Bridge. That's how that works. So that's how deep all this goes. People ask, why would the British be on the Nazi side? Because right up until the end, they had deals to do it until they basically announced a secret arrest warrant. This is in mainline history books for the King of England, because he had run off to Germany when World War II started, and then he had to sneak back through into Spain, then was brought back to England, but had to abdicate. So, I mean, isn't that amazing, amazing history? And it's all completely on record, but you don't see it on Discovery Channel. You don't see it on History Channel. This morning when I got up at 6 a.m. and turned on Fox News and started punching up Infowars.com and DrudgeReport.com, as I do to monitor fake conservative news on Fox, and then look at real news and analysis from Drudge and Infowars, you would think that an American icon, George Washington, was retiring. The Duke of Edinburgh, and they rolled out all these Brits. I love Brits, but just, Brits on U.S. TV lecturing us how great the Queen is and how great the her consort, the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Charles's father, how great he is. This is a guy who on live TV goes, oh my goodness, we have blacks in here. I'm surprised they know how to screw in light bulbs. And of course, he was best friends with Jimmy Savile, the famous Satanist and pedophile who liked to slit little girls' throats with the Prime Minister. I reported that 10 years ago. Now it's mainstream news. And there he is in the Scottish Guard regalia. He couldn't stand the Queen of England. That's in mainline history books. because she was a nymphomaniac, demanding sex up to 20 times a day. And he called her a cow and other names. He liked the really racy, sexy supermodels. But good friends with the pedophile, confirmed pedophile, Jimmy Savile, who had the highest level national security, royal security clearance up until the time he died, to all of the royal palaces, even above MI5 and MI6 and the Royal Guard. Can't make that stuff up, but let's punch him up in the Scottish Guard regalia. He looks like what Emperor Palpatine wishes he looked like. Pure, seething, unabated, absolute vampiric evil. And the admitted blood transfusions that they get from children, that's admitted. The Queen of England, the Queen Mother, lived up to 100 and something with the blood transfusions. But the old brain finally ain't working on that guy. You think that snapper, you think that little demon's seen a few things? 95 years old. You want to know who the enemy is? That's it right there. You want to know who's at the bottom of the rat hole? People like this. And Lord Rothschild. Every time about the Rothschilds being at the top of the pyramid, they go, oh, you're anti-Semitic. What, Jews can't be at the top of the pyramid? Germans can't be? Transylvanians? It's a fact. The Rothschilds aren't even Jewish. For 200 years, they've been marrying into this French Merovingian / Transylvanian / Germanic bloodline. And if you look at the Rothschilds, they look like this guy. Yeah, they might be some, I think the current Rothschilds in England, the lords over there, I think are like 12.5% Jewish. Last time I read a mainstream news article about it. What they are is New World Order demons. So you just think about that, and you look at that for a long time, ladies and gentlemen, and you think about being locked up in some dungeon when one of these boys comes toddling in. Yeah, he just died at 100 and whatever it was. First Rockefeller to go past 100. All of them, back to John D. I, had huge bets they could make it past 100. None of them did it, but David. Old David. And old David in the 30s was in Germany for years in Army Intelligence, a secret commission that I've been told about by high-level sources, and working for the, what was it, AP, the nice front for those boys, taking famous photos of the Duke of Edinburgh meeting with Hitler and photos of Hitler early on before he even launched wars, 36, 37, 38. Old David was representing the family in Deutschland, making big profits, and Rockefeller-owned factories were not allowed to be bombed by my grandfathers, both in the Army Air Corps, in World War II. By the way, everything I'm saying, you can just search engine and find even mainstream news. Ford, Chevrolet, Opel factories, tank factories owned by the Rockefellers were not allowed to be bombed. IBM computer factories were not allowed to be bombed. Yep. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the Duke of Edinburgh marching with Adolf Alois Hitler and the German High Command. Isn't that just precious? Isn't that just delightful? Isn't that just cutie cake time? But see, in this modern world, if your grandfathers fought the Nazis and the mainline Nazi groups hate you more than anybody and David Duke says you're the enemy and all the rest of it, then you get called a David Duke lover. You get called a David Duke lover in court and lose your children. That's how America works, ladies and gentlemen. Because being informed is a crime. Being real is a crime. Reading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and I've read over 300, 400, 500 books just on World War II and World War I. Over 20, 30 on the Civil War. I'm not bragging. I just got into it. More than 100 on British naval warfare history because they were the ones that actually wrote down their history, so they have the best histories. All intriguing stuff. Each page a new battle. The Battle of the Nile. Lord Nelson, all of it amazing. But then you look on with horror when you see a Prince Philip and, oh, the Queen, she likes a good pea soup. Oh, good old Prince Philip. I've got a stack of quotes out of the London Guardian here of Prince Philip saying black people aren't humans, all the rest of it. On death, he says, in the event that I'm reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus to contribute something to solving overpopulation. 1988. And, of course, who runs the modern eugenics operation? The same people we're talking about. So I've just spent 12 minutes on this. I'm going to stop now. I've got Le Pen slams Macron. Le Pen slams Macron. France will be led by a woman, either me or Miss Merkel. Because Germany's running the EU right now, and the globalists run Germany. That's absolutely a fact. And the French know that. So she destroys Macron. She's the daughter of a World War II hero, paratrooper in D-Day, that won France's highest award and England's highest award and high awards from the United States. And her dad was demonized for being a French patriot, not wanting the Muslims to take over. And it's got to be sweet victory for him to now see his daughter about to be president. Let's go ahead and get into the big, exciting news. Even in the skewed polls that are being put out by the state-run media in France, the Muslims running around burning cities, killing people every night, shooting police. People are just sick of it. And the media won't ever call it Islamic. In just the last few years, their tourism's down by half. In the last decade, it's down by 80%. I've talked to family that's been to Paris. They say you can't recognize it. There's just people from North Africa everywhere just crapping on the side of the street. Forget the poor gypsies. There's just Islamists everywhere wearing, you know, kind of gangster, feli, Puma outfits and cussing at everybody. And it's just a nightmare. It's falling apart. The country is committing suicide. That's globalism. And so Le Pen comes out and slams Macron, says France will be led by a woman, either me or Ms. Merkel. And again, that's because Germany runs the EU. It was always a German project. And it's not the German people. They're great people. It's the corruption, you know, the globalism using Germany to always control Europe. And again, the EU was a Hitler project. That is a uncontrovertible, undisputed fact. Those are stubborn things, aren't they? Let's go to Le Pen in the debate last night.
The reality, you went to see Mrs. Merkel, you went to ask for her blessing because you plan to do nothing without her agreement. It's so true. What are you going to do opposite Mrs. Merkel? You said, I won't be opposite her, I will be with her.
Of course, I want France to measure up to Germany.
Let me tell you what happened. France will be led by a woman. It'll be either me or Mrs. Merkel. That's the truth.
Look at that punk. Now, continuing, where's all the feminists? Well, women are reportedly going to vote for her in record numbers. And she's a classy lady. I know folks that have known her. Bob Chapman was good friends with her going way back, and her dad. And they're just good people. And it's just nationalistic, free market. They have, on average, an 80+% tax there. France is a great country. People always make fun of France and say they're a bunch of wimps. It was the most warlike country ever until Napoleon killed something like half the adult male population in 2 giant, decades-long wars. People are sick of it. And France helped found this republic. And France needs to be free again. They need a Charles de Gaulle to bring their sovereignty back. Because after World War II, France didn't get its sovereignty back. They didn't have their own nuclear weapons, none of it. And de Gaulle seized the airfields and their own military bases in a bloodless coup against NATO. So the French need to do that again. Now, let's go ahead and go to this clip. The kiss of death. Obama, who endorsed not having Brexit, that was the last straw for the Brits, pulling out of the EU. Now he has endorsed Macron. Here it is.
I've always been grateful for the friendship of the French people and for the work we did together when I was president of the United States. I'm not planning to get involved in many elections now that I don't have to run for office again. But the French election is very important to the future of France and the values that we care so much about. Because the success of France matters to the entire world. I have admired the campaign that Emmanuel Macron has run. He has stood up for liberal values, He put forward a vision for the important role that France plays in Europe and around the world.
Bring in more Islamists, conquer Europe.
He is committed to a better future for the French people.
Total elites, tax exempt,
appeals to people's hopes
screwing you.
And not their fears. And I enjoyed speaking to Emmanuel recently to hear about his independent movement and his vision for the future of France.
He's independent. He's anti-elite.
I know that you face many challenges, and I want all of my friends in France to know how much I am rooting for your success. Because of how important this election is, I also want you to know that I am supporting Emmanuel Macron to lead you forward. En marche. Vive la France.
Well, that's the kiss of death right there, unless they steal the election. Totally sick. Stay with us. Well, if you just joined it, if you just tuned into the broadcast, you just joined our 30-plus hour live global transmission that we're now 24 hours and 33 minutes into, all teleprompter-free radio/TV at Infowars.com/show and over 200 affiliates across the country. If you just joined us, just to recap, Marie Le Pen slams Macron. France will be led by a woman, either me or Ms. Merkel, showing how the EU has taken over France and other countries. Now, last year, Obama traveled to England and the UK, lobbied against Brexit, pulling out of the unelected EU that had taken over England, was making over 90% of their decisions for them. And many Brits said that pushed them over the edge to vote for Brexit. And now, earlier I played Obama in his fancy new private studio. I guess he's got plenty of money now. He gives $400,000 speeches to big banking cartels and big Wall Street firms. It's a payoff. He's got his fancy cameras, his fancy studios to sit there and put out propaganda and still act like he's the president and say, Vive la France! Vive Macron! And what's crazy about that is, Vive la France is what Le Pen's doing. The EU is absorbing nation states. The EU and Peter Sutherland that helped set up the EU, who now runs the refugee program, flooding the West with giant third world desperate populations, victims of the globalist program. They said that they want to get rid of sports teams that are based on German, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Danish, Dutch, you name it, because that's nationalistic and bad. They even want to get rid of that and just call them the T-Rexes or the Kings or the Goblins, literally. They even want to get rid of nationalism because they want you totally atomized, totally by yourself, with no culture, no sovereignty, no nothing. So I just wanted to play this one more time. Here is Obama, Vive la France, when it should be, how do you say down with France in French? Viva means up, I guess in Latin or French or Spanish, the Romance languages. Viva la France. How do you say down or the fall in French? You guys search engine, how do you say, just type in, how do you say fall in French? And the great NSA interface, Google or whatever, Bing or I guess the Microsoft system will tell us. But the true quote would be, down with France. Down with the people. But here's Obama, Vive la France. Totally sickening. Totally fake. Totally disgusting. So she's going to win. But let's look at some of the other socialist wonderlands. France is falling apart. North Korea has fallen apart 50 years ago. Venezuela was the second richest country in Latin America just 30, 40 years ago. As rich as an Argentine was the old saying, has had a higher GDP for hundreds of years than the U.S., the richest country in this hemisphere. How do you say down in French or fall? Varse? Verse? La basse avec la France?
Vers le bas avec la France.
So that's what Obama should be really saying.
Vers le bas avec la France.
There you go. But Venezuela was the second richest. Just 30, 40 years ago, it was still nicer than most areas of the United States. Beautiful area. Now it is a besieged hellhole. They ate all the zoo animals 3 years ago. There's no more pets on the streets. No more birds that you can really find unless you go in the deep jungle. Just like North Korea, nothing's moving. They're eating everything. And the word is cannibalism's now setting in. People are starving to death by the thousands every month. Venezuela, this is from Yahoo News, French news agency. Venezuela protests rage, death toll hits 32. Deadly anti-government protests threatened to rage on in Venezuela Thursday. with students vowing fresh marches after a day of flames and tear gas brought the death toll to 32. Police feared tear gas and protesters hurled Molotov cocktails on Wednesday in the last rallies against the president, really he's a dictator, they have fake elections, planned to rewrite the Constitution to keep himself in power. Meanwhile, they had to cancel some global warming conferences last week in Denver because it was so cold. And here's a new headline out of KDVR television. Hundreds of cows killed or lost in southeast Colorado blizzard. Global warming. But I forgot, it's now climate change, which is always happening. Speaking of that, I want to play this Al Gore piece in a minute. I want to go to that, my analysis of his independent, inconvenient, globalist-funded, Soros-loving New World Order propaganda piece. Marine Le Pen was egged on French presidential campaign trail in Brittany. And it goes on and on. Oil prices plunged 4%, below 46 a barrel, dropping to a 5-month low. French police defy their unions to vote Le Pen. That big vote's going on as we speak, or kicks off as we speak. And I've got a bunch of clips I want to get to. And I've got a lot of news I want to cover with this big brother front. President Obama's team sought NSA intel on thousands of Americans during the 2016 election. That is totally, absolutely illegal. And they've been caught red-handed. I'm going to break that down. House will vote on GOP Obamacare replacement bill on Thursday. Will the media stop making death threats against President Trump? BuzzFeed's responded to revelation. Employees joked about Trump assassination. They responded to Paul Watson. It sounded like more like they were planning it, talking about, I hope he dies. Somebody ought to do it. Hispanics give Trump higher approval rating than the rest of the U.S. Yep, that's a new poll out. 3 illegal immigrants, MS-13 gang members, arrested for attempted murder in Long Island machete attack. And it's Hispanic Americans that are really sick of it because they're the ones getting fed on by criminals that are above the law. That's the wall Trump promised. Spicer and Breitbart journalists clash over Mexican border wall. Yeah, and I guess Breitbart was supposed to be loyal opposition, so they're not doing that. That's good. And so that's why Bannon's in so much trouble. He's supposed to rein it in, you know, the Frankenstein creature of conservatism that they don't like. But the good news is Trump only has $500 million. He hasn't gotten the full budget passed yet. So he's repairing the main traffic areas that are already there and then getting the bids to build the new one. And the media is spinning it like he's failed only 106 days into office. Took them 2 years to pass Obamacare. They've got a better version of the bill than the last one. Still not perfect, but if he could get that passed in 105, 106, 107 days, that's just crazy good. I think it's really much about nothing to say, oh, you're only going to repair stuff with $500 million. That's what he's gotten passed. That's what he's doing as a patch on it while he tries to get his promise delivered. You know, if we all just desert Trump because he's not perfect, doesn't deliver everything like, you know, Christ can do on a silver platter, then we're going to drive him into the arms of the globalist. And I can tell you from multiple sources that President Trump does not like being president. He wanted to be president. It was a real run. But he's just so shocked by the cowardice, the traitors, and people that don't want to make the country great. He's tired of all the leakers and all the scum in his own administration that he is really bummed out right now. Not welcome. Japan is very, very tough, and it basically accepts no refugees. That's why they actually have no crime. We're going to look at that. No regret, Stephen Colbert responds to firestorm over use of homophobic slur. It's not a homophobic slur, and I don't like Stephen Colbert. He's funny. He's entertaining. He's got, you know, over 100 writers, 19 full-time ones. He's an actor on a marionette. He is a puppet that sits there and looks like he's super smart because he's got a 7-minute monologue he does every night written by 100 people. And then he has questions written to sound witty with the guests that come on, and they rehearse those. He's an actor. He's a puppet. He's lip-syncing to the music. He's not real. But that said, he's a handsome guy. His writers are funny. He carries it out well. I mean, I can't help but like Colbert even while he's lying about me and my family and trying to destroy my life. But he always pushes people losing their jobs for political correctness. But see, he is an anointed one, so he's allowed to say that Donald Trump is a holster for Vladimir Putin's sexual member. Now, when I said that about Congressman Schiff serving the globalist, it means derriere kisser. It means butt kisser. It doesn't mean you're bashing gay people, but it's like this holiness that if you're a homosexual, say I'm supposed to use the word gay, you tell me to, heterosexual, homosexual, it's scientific terms. I'm sick of being told what terms to use. I don't dislike anybody, but I shouldn't have to sit there like I'm guilty and then kiss everybody's rear end and say, oh my gosh, and then run around and call for people to be burned at the stake, but sit there and say that President Trump is on the end of Vladimir Putin's Johnson. I mean, that's what they're saying. And that just means you're kissing someone's rear end. Yeah, I mean, if you say that Trump is Putin's butt boy, it doesn't mean you're bashing gay people. Universally, it means you serve that person. You're on bottom is what that means. And every gay person knows that, and the media knows that, and it's all just a cult of beating everybody over the head and turning liberal class people into higher society that we bow down to, and I don't like it. I'm sick of it. I don't care if you're homosexual or heterosexual. You don't sexualize kids, and you leave people alone, and you don't force people. I'm sick of gay harassment is basically what it is. And I don't dislike gay people. I mean liberal establishment, Hollywood, gay mafia that a lot of liberals talk about that is just in your face, and you've got to bow down to and put up with and go along with. You know, neighborhoods wouldn't want a heterosexual Pride Day with naked men and women humping each other, driving through the middle of neighborhoods. Any more than you'd want a homosexual one doing it. I mean, normal parades for the VFW or the military or a football team or St. Patty's Day are fun, and you take the kids out. Why is a gay parade a bunch of naked men swinging their weenies around? Excuse my French. And look, dude, just go do it in your bedroom. It's like you go out to dinner with your friends and they keep kissing and French kissing at the dinner table in front of you. And it's not that you're even upset about it. It's grandstanding. It's like, get a room. It's one thing if somebody's leaving and, you know, they kiss their girlfriend or their wife or their husband bye, or, you know, some of that's going on, or somebody just got married. But everybody knows the couples you've gone out with, and they start macking down in front of you and grabbing all over each other. And it's like a show-off thing. And the word is, those are the couples that aren't doing anything, you know, in the bedroom. And it's the same thing. You'll just be sitting there in a hotel lobby with your kids, and two dudes are grabbing each other's rear ends. They're all over each other French kissing in front of you as just an act of we're in your face. And it's just like, you're posing, you're grandstanding, you're running around, hopping around, trying to get attention for yourself. And I, for one, am sick of it. And when I say something like Schiff being a globalist butt boy, the media says I'm being homophobic. When if I wanted to be homophobic, I would say horrible things. I don't. I'm a libertarian. What my speech is very clear. And by the way, Trump is not Putin's butt boy. Trump has become the butt boy of John McCain and Lindsey Graham and Congressman Peter Schiff. By not meeting with Putin, by starting an escalation of conflict with Russia out of thin air when the globalists and George Soros started the Ukraine war 3.5 years ago, Trump has been intimidated and bullied by his national security advisor and everybody else into a warlike stance with Russia. And so the truth is, Trump is the Johnson holster for the warmongering neocons and Democrats. Trump is the Johnson holster of the military-industrial complex. There you go. Now truth has been said. I don't dislike Trump. He's doing great things in the economy. I know he's a real guy. I know he's bummed out. But let's just get things real, Colbert. And you watch how twisted they are. Will Jones be boycotted and taken off air after homophobic slur? I love how Colbert comes out, and let's cue that up. It's at the very start. And says, I'm not going to apologize. I'm proud of what I do. Do I still have my job? I still have my job. Yay. Exactly. You're going to get everybody else fired. You're going to control everybody and beat everybody over the head and say they're hateful and they're not open. While you cover up for Islam that throws gays off buildings everywhere. And you're going to run your mouth constantly. And then you have free speech, but none of us do. Right, Colbert? See, I don't have people writing stuff for me. The crew says, hey, did you see this article? Or, hey, you know, here's a good point. Zach made the point of, hey, look at that fancy studio Obama's got with $400,000 a piece speeches getting paid off by Wall Street, which he claims he's the anti-Wall Street guy. I'm not anti-Wall Street. I'm anti the top 5 big banks and brokerage firms that screw everybody else and shut off funding to the middle class and to small businesses that Trump's trying to turn back on. So Trump really is trying to push prosperity and really trying to be the president. That's why they hate him. The special interests aren't in charge now, but Trump's making deals with them. And notice, they only come after him that much more. All right, we're going to go to break. I'm going to get to the Al Gore thing later, and I've also got my Prometheus prediction of 5 years ago now come true with Ridley Scott. That's up on Infowars.com. Very powerful, very informative. TSA report warns against truck ramming attacks by terrorists. Our media is finally calling these truck attacks and car attacks terrorism. In Stockholm, Sweden, with mass Stockholm syndrome, pun intended. Well, it's not even a pun. It's what it is. It's a double entendre. They won't call it terrorism, and they're calling for banning cars. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Hey, life's dangerous. Don't have kids. You know, it's kind of that attitude. You know, don't even exist because you're going to die someday. What? That doesn't make sense. But briefly, I want to thank you all for your support. Every month or so, I think we're going to do a fundraiser, and just with huge discounts at InfoWarsStore.com on water filtration systems and on high-quality supplements that have changed my life and changed so many others. But we are under massive globalist sustained attack. We're not even that commercial of a show. We don't even fund ourselves, you know, with the network spots you hear. We fund ourselves with you buying products at InfoWarsStore.com and with subscribing to the InfoWars Prime app that has so many great features. Whether it's non-GMO heirloom seeds or super high-quality freeze-dry systems or high-quality storable foods or survival gear or the very best colloidal silver and other nutraceuticals are available at InfoWarsStore.com. Again, that's InfoWarsStore.com. Skip this break, only this one today. InfoWarsStore.com is the umbrella site. InfoWarsLife.com is the subpage. And listen, listeners, have you ever seen anybody except Trump under more attack than yours truly? Have you ever seen that? Why is that? Because I know history. I have great guests on. I have great callers. We know what we're talking about. We're promoting something that's sexy Americana that everybody knows is a hell of a lot better than totalitarianism and all of its horrible, nasty flavors. Totalitarianism is like Jim Jones Kool-Aid, though. It may be in cherry, strawberry, coconut, grape, pina colada, peach, pear, cranberry, but it's all got cyanide in it. Authoritarianism, oligarchies, royalty, the monarchies, communism, fascism, socialism. It all leads towards destruction and centralized control and stagnation and non-innovation. We know that. It's a fact. Just look at all the examples. Europe's collapsing with its socialist experiment, its multiculturalism, and all the rest of it. Because it wasn't real multiculturalism. It was divide and conquer. By design. It hasn't failed. It's working as it was meant to be. Read the founding documents of the EU. It was a governing system of control the Nazis created and then shelved when they were defeated, but brought back at the Oosterbeek-Holland-Bilderberg meeting, 1954. A few years later, they had the Treaty of Rome. Read it for yourself. It's online. Establishing Treaty of London. Quote, steel deals. We're here on the front lines, changing the world. Thank God. Thank you for your prayers. I can feel your prayers. I can see the providence. Pray for us. Spread the link. Spread the articles. If you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube or a local AM or FM station, send it out in your email every day. This is forbidden information. Alex Jones, check out this feed. You don't like him, you'll love his other host. Different strokes for different folks. Takes all kinds. I love the other host. Can't stand watching myself. A lot of people like me. Okay, whatever. Infowars.com/show. Spread that link. Sometimes we do these live feeds and only 500,000 people tune in over the broadcast extra on top of the regular listeners. Sometimes we do it and 10, 15, 20 million tune in. It's all up to you sending out the links on Facebook, on Twitter, on Google, telling people about it, word of mouth, telling them to spread the word. Hey, we're taking America back. This is the guy that's under attack. This is the organization that's under attack. Let's move together. Let's spread the word. Let's do our part. Let's buy products. Everybody should be getting a gravity-fed water filter. It leaves the good minerals in, cuts out all the garbage. We have 3 of the best brands out there with the best test. They're apples and oranges. Some are better at this, some are better at that. But it's all like 99999 or total removal. Really, really affordable systems, amazing reviews, shower systems that cut out all the garbage or massively reduce it. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com is the nutraceuticals. And here are some of the specials. 30% off Brain Force, our nootropic. 20% off Secret 12 methylcobalamin, super high-quality organic B12. 20% off Knockout at $15. You just cannot beat Knockout. $15.98 or whatever. I mean, a bottle of melatonin the same strength is more than that. And this has the L-tryptophan, the valerian root, and all the rest of it. So good. 20% off Winter Sun, vitamin D3, totally organic. 20% off Prostagard. They have saw palmetto you hear advertised for $40 everywhere. This is less than that. The same dose of organic saw palmetto that's been documented, not just the prostate, but so many other glands. The government even lets you make claims on saw palmetto. It's so amazing. And then a bunch of other stuff that is known to supercharge your glands and your prostate as well. It's amazing what it does for your life, your comfort, your sex life. I think women should take it too, because it doesn't just affect the prostate from the research I've done. 20% off Biome Defense 25. That's the great, and we keep it cool here. Super high quality, best strains of probiotics out there. 20% off Living Defense, Parasite Cleanse, 30% off Pro Pure King water filters, DNA stock. It's back in stock, but only a day or two. And I went to them and I said, what's going on? Why are you only ordering a few thousand of these at a time? Then it's out for 2 months. And they said, it's hard to source. And then we have to test it. It has to be all California standard. And then that goes on and that drives up the price. And then you don't have enough money to buy 5,000 bottles of this with what's left. You got to get above a threshold. I was with the accountants yesterday for like 30 minutes. You got to get above this threshold of extra money. And like we keep telling you, to be able to buy enough of it to get over that threshold, then to always have it, and then it'll fund you. $35,000, $40,000, depending on the purchase of the BioPQQ alone that goes in it. We're talking $45, $50, depending on the run, $60 a product in each bottle, and we sell it for $130. Sounds like a lot. Most people have 300, 400, 500, 600, 700% markup in nutraceuticals. I went to what was in the German labs, U.S. labs that doctors prescribe. It's over the counter, but not in stores. Because they've learned that, oh, you only pay for the stuff if it's a doctor. They sell it for $300, $400, $500. We've gone out and made a formula better than what medical doctors are selling. The same stuff, but even better, for a third the price or less. Okay? That's DNA Force. They don't even need to plug it because I can't ever keep it in. And I said, that's fine. We're going to sit there and hopefully take any backup money we get from this fundraiser sale where you just purchase great stuff at discounts and we fund us. And I said, we're going to start ordering 5,000 bottles of this so that we can keep it in stock all the time. Because if I could just get this one product in stock and have everybody buy, 5,000 of these every few months, we could fund so much more of the operation. InfoWarsStore.com. I want to hire 5 or 6 more reporters, 5 or 6 more editors, 5 or 6 more writers. I got to get more administrative people. And I just need to grow to this next level, be able to then have sponsors on the new radio shows, TV shows I'm going to launch, so that the talk show hosts can get paid and live and not turn their shows into infomercials. And I plan to launch and work with GC. I need to talk to Ted about this, but launch a whole bunch in the next few months. I'm hiring more board ops, more video switchers. We got whole new crews in here. They're getting trained. They're doing an amazing job. We've been really blessed. And we're building a big new $500,000 studio. And that sounds like a lot of money. TV's expensive. A decent switcher that doesn't constantly screw up is $50,000. A decent camera is $20,000. The wiring, the HD cables, the jumbotrons, all of this is a $250,000 studio without the cameras and the lights. I'm building a $500,000 studio, okay, right next through that wall in our old warehouse. We'll move the warehouse out of here. And it's not in the same building or complex now. And we just need your support. And sign up for auto ship, an additional 10% off all these specials, and then cancel any time, but sign up for every 15 days, every month, every 2 months, every 3 months, every 6 months. and then just cancel anytime, an additional 10% off. You get great products. You save 10% off. And then you don't have to remember to order DNA Force. We hold it back even though it sells out for folks that are on auto ship. You get your knockout. You get your colloidal silver. You get your X2. You get your bone broth. You get it all at InfoWarsLife.com or InfoWarsStore.com. And then it just comes in, and then you're supporting us and don't have to worry about remembering to do it every time. And if you ever get in a pinch or whatever, just cancel. And then you can rest assured you're getting great products for your friends and family and neighbors and yourself. And you're supporting people that are willing to be destroyed for this mission. And I'm not saying that because I'm some angel. I fundamentally want to serve my family and serve you. And also, I get crazed, you know, like a pit bull guarding his family. I mean, I don't thank me for this. I'm born for this. I can't stop. They can put a gun to my head and say, deny Christ or deny liberty. I say, pull that trigger. You know, I have no fear except failure. So please help us win together. Make the commitment to support us financially today. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. We'll be back in the second hour. Stay with us. Former Navy SEAL, great researcher, expert on radical Islam and the globalist operations, Matt Bracken's going to join us. And at the bottom of the hour, I'm going to open the phones up for the rest of the next couple hours here. We've got a bunch of other hosts that are going to be coming in. Radio stations don't carry us past the fourth hour, but some TV stations and now some stations do pick up pieces of these larger live broadcasts, especially on election night and, you know, a big coverage like that. We're very thankful for our affiliates out there. Please support them. But I will, at the bottom of the hour, open the phones up. DrudgeReport.com is linked to a Paul Joseph Watson article I mentioned. So let me just go ahead and cover this right now. First off, BuzzFeed is reportedly $100 million in debt. BuzzFeed, just to show how they're failing but propped up like the New York Times, BuzzFeed had a reporter for months. I even got a call by one of our old shipping department guys, Matt, who was a great guy. He was getting married. They wanted to move back to Maine. That's why he left. He said he literally got like called 20 times until he was going to file a complaint for harassment. How much he was getting called by BuzzFeed. And I read this article they wrote, and it's literally 95% total made-up crap. So they had a guy for months doing this just to, I guess, make it look like it's real. And then the weird little stories in there that are just totally made up but are so complex, you know, you even think it's real. And I passed it around with people that have been there and said, none of this is even true. The only thing true in there that I saw was that I buy people steak dinners and stuff. And I'm always buying the office lunch like every week or so. I just like doing it. You know, get catering in. Nothing fancy. There was just nothing there. It was like I'm obsessed with Rush Limbaugh, and I hate him, and I have a fake voice. I mean, I've openly said, I've criticized Limbaugh before, but I've said I hope he stays on air. I don't want to be in a time slot up against him. That's what GCN made me do 19 years ago. And I spent money on his show, and they were boycotting him and led a movement for people to advertise to keep him afloat. Never got a thank you for it. Limbaugh, before he went deaf, he sounds great for the implants he's got, sounded with a very smooth, booming, nice voice. I have a raspy voice. I've been to the eye, nose, throat doctor. And they said, yeah, you have big lesions on your larynx from screaming. Back when I used to scream at rallies without bullhorns, to the point I'd cough up blood. I didn't have a very deep voice, wasn't a high voice, but all the bullhorning and not bullhorning and screaming that I've had to go to specialists now. And I've had sleep studies done too. I have obviously really bad sleep apnea because I have a big head, big chest. I've lost some weight, so it's a lot better than it used to be, but I was really bad. I had oxygen like 64% sometimes, quit breathing quite a bit. And, you know all this, and you're reading where you have a fake voice. I mean, I may have to have surgery because my ragged, torn up voice about 5 years ago was kind of cool. Now I've lost control of range, and it's getting deeper and more raspy and more torn up. I have like an 85-year-old's larynx. And then it said, re-engineer the sound to make me gruffer. I've told them, CJ, get ready when we come back. I've told CJ, who's one of our great engineers, and Wes, over and over again, make me less gruff and less raspy. And Nico, when he got hired, was honest and said he thinks my voice is grating. I've said that over and over again. I don't like my voice. Some people do, women particularly. But I don't like it. This is my voice. We are into hour number 25 of the global 30-hour transmission. And then this morning, Nico and others pointed out, you know, we do that 3 to 5 show that's beta testing and training folks to go live on radio and TV. That's just Facebook and YouTube only. And then we've got the nightly news coming up. Let's just go right through to 8 o'clock. And I said, you guys have barely slept, you guys and gals, but let's do it. By the way, Bill Nye, the science guy, came out last week on his show, Bill Nye Saves the World. Of course, he's our savior, just pay him carbon taxes, saying arrest people that disagree with man-made climate change. Well, we don't agree that there's climate change. We do agree. We're just not saying most of it's man-made. Now they've edited his latest episode. We have clips of that coming up. I'll play that this hour. Where, get ready for this, ladies and gentlemen. Bill Nye, the science guy, edited it out in the second airing of it and edited on your TiVos, you can go in and do this, and on your DVRs, where they said that chromosomes determine the sex. So that's transphobic to say that chromosomes create sex. No, it's in your mind, you see. So it's hurtful to say this is happening. By the way, my mic suddenly sounds different. I don't normally talk about myself, but we're under such attack, we have to actually say the truth. BuzzFeed, who's under a lot of fire for their internal documents coming out, where they were gloating and hoping that Trump would be killed, their leader over there, had a guy for several months calling people I knew in college, my first jobs, trying to get somebody who didn't like me to make something up. And I guess they did. I mean, I'm reading this article, Alex Jones will always be Alex Jones. And the only true thing in it is that I'm not an actor, and I really believe what I say and what I do. Then they go on using unnamed people to make up that I didn't want Trump to be elected, that I didn't want Obama to be defeated in 2012, and that my voice is fake. And then I told the producers that I want to sound gruffer. No, I believe my voice is grating and annoying at times, and I said I want to sound smoother and like I'm in the room. And I've had engineers here doing that with my engineers, and it's all on record. So that's the level of lies in here, that I have a fake voice and that I'm trying to sound like Rush Limbaugh. Folks, Rush Limbaugh, before he went deaf, that's politically incorrect, before he became hearing impaired, he has a great, smooth, booming voice. I have, when I get excited, it's almost like a high-pitched, low voice. It's very, very annoying. And so I've asked them to take the raspiness out to be less gruff. But am I wrong, CJ, one of our engineers? Because as soon as I came back live, I was saying, take the raspy, gruff filter off. We have a filter to block that. That's actually my directive, the opposite, again, of what BuzzFeed says, just so it's all pure bull. But now I think my voice actually sounds different or louder in my ear. Is that placebo, or did you just change the settings?
No, we took a lot of the lower range emphasis off, which smooths out your voice. There's a vocal processor on your preamp that tends to pull down the raspiness or the kind of rattle in your throat that typically comes across. Okay, but am I wrong? Did you just change something when I came back on air? Yeah, I took it out. Okay, well, I kind of like it like this in my own ear, just because that's what I actually sound like. It always kind of sounds weird. It sounds harsher. Well, then maybe you shouldn't put the filters on, I said, because I actually like how this sounds. This is how I sound. The point is, it's not about me, but they say I'm a total phony, I'm an actor, all this made-up crap. My voice, from yelling and screaming with bullhorns and without them, I have polyps on my larynx, and they say I need to have surgery, but I won't be able to speak for 4 weeks. But they've told me that it's getting progressively worse, and that I have, the larynx of an 80-year-old man. So I just love how
I guess Trump being elected is fake. I guess nationalism rising and Le Pen about to be elected is fake. I guess the Islamists launching terror attacks all over the world and calling for jihad is fake. There's new video of Muslims in Germany saying, in fact, I want to play this later. I forgot to tell the crew about it. I mean, I didn't see it in my list here. I saw it this morning. That they're going to have all the German daughters and take over and that Christianity's over. We have imams on video, the head imam of Jerusalem saying, they are weak. We will take their women, all the pleasure of it. And, of course, Matt Bracken has been pointing out there's the House of Islam and everything outside the House of Islam is the House of War. And so why are the globalists allied with Islam? We were talking about this a year ago with Bracken. It sounded crazy. He was talking about it a decade ago. So was, you know, people like David Horowitz, who I thought was crazy 15 years ago when he said, you know, unholy alliance, the left and Islam. But now they came out in the USA Today, Associated Press, Reuters, everywhere last week and said, in the age of Trump, the hijab is the new symbol of feminism. And then the next article was in the Washington Post. It said, we've learned to get guns and God from Russia. It's Russian to have guns. What? I mean, oh, yeah, the headline was guns and religion a few days ago. It's total inversion of reality. So if I want free market and guns and fast cars and freedom and low taxes and God-fearing, if I want to be God-fearing, if I don't want to be a religious freedom, I'm a bad guy. Guns and religion, how American conservatives grew closer to Putin's Russia. There it is. Let's pull up the one where I think the headline is something like, there it is. Hijab becomes symbol of resistance, feminism in the age of Trump. What type of kept, brainwashed morons read stuff like that? You know, the moon is made of green Swiss cheese. Who believes that? And then you have topless feminists in Berlin and D.C. and New York and L.A. going, Allah Akbar, calls to prayer with their breasts hanging out. You'd be put in prison or beaten or executed in minutes for that in most Muslim countries. Oh, and why are Muslim countries 99% or 100% like Saudi Arabia Muslim? Because they're not tolerant. But see, I'm intolerant. Totally sick. Reason I went off on a jag about BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed responds to revelation employees joked about Trump assassination. Sounds more like, you know, just talking about how much they wanted. They responded to Paul Watson's info on that. This is the group that created the Wee Wee Gate, saying that, you know, Trump is in a room with Russian hookers. You know, he was actually on Pluto having sex with a robot named Stephen Colbert. None of this is real. They are the true fake news. And I love how the article keeps saying, I can't handle criticism. All I do is get criticized. I love it. I love constructive criticism. But let's get real with the crew. I haven't even told them, you know, what I was going to ask them. But let's bring CJ, Wes, anybody that's involved in engineering on. Do I encourage people to challenge me on stuff? Do I tell people to make my voice sound gruffer? What have I really said, CJ? Didn't even know I was going to him. He's not there.
Sorry, I ran away to get some other work done. But no, you've never said your voice sounded gruffer.
What have I said?
Smoother, more like you're in the room. You have that nice radio voice that many national smooth talkers have.
I mean, I guess I could try smooth talking here. I guess.
NPR.
Oh, NPR voice. I didn't really so much want that, but yeah. I just love how there's these anonymous people, you know, saying things.
If you say anything to us, it's what do you think? How was that? You've asked us if we agree, what our thoughts are. And you're not telling us what to think. That's for sure.
Do I get mad when you give me constructive criticism?
No.
And again, I don't talk about myself all day. It's just I'm here. In fact, I encourage you guys and gals to jump on air when you want and to challenge me, actually. Just like I challenge, and I don't talk about myself anymore. It's just that I have to because they're building a facsimile of Alex Jones and then lying about me everywhere. And then trying to destroy who we are. And then it says in there that I pressured LifeStraw and I pressured these companies to sell it to me at $10 and I sell it for $50. I went and talked to Tim Frugier and Weldon Henson last night. They were here and they go, Alex, we've never sold it for more than $25. We've never gotten it for $10. It's just totally made up. That's what's crazy. In fact, I haven't even set this up. Let's just see what LifeStraw is right now. And the other survival straws we've got at InfoWarsStore.com. Here, let's pull it up. And then we're going to Matt Bracken. I apologize for having hold, but he'll go a little bit with us in the next hour. enemiesforeignanddomestic.com, best-selling author. Find his information there. But this is just really, really frustrating. There it is, $22.95. I mean, we have to be competitive. Oh, it's discounted. It's $19.95. We've never sold it above, he looked at the computer, above $24. $19.95. It says we sell them for $50. That's what I mean. Don't you think the idiots at BuzzFeed who were here for months following me around would actually go look at the website? But see, they don't care. They're preying on their audience in their little bubble. Matt Bracken, we got a lot of serious news. This explosion in Madrid, killing a bunch of people. They say it might be a chemical plant. We got TSA warns against truck ramming attacks by terrorists. We've got so much big news happening with Le Pen and the jihadis threatening to burn down France in a Tet 2 offensive that you've been predicting. Tell us what's front and center on your radar so we can cover it when we come back.
Sure. I've thought of a new kind of analogy for where we are right now. Last year I was talking about like tsunami wave warnings. And right now I think what we're seeing is a huge social tectonic plate about to rupture. Because, you know, from the 50s with Joe McCarthy being demonized through Walter Cronkite, who was a globalist, but pretending to be, you know, the most trusted man in America, all the way until, I guess, Dan Rather and Memogate was when the new media was able to push back. Now they can't control the narrative. So now there are forces in two directions. They can't just turn this country into like Mao's China, even though our college students are that brainwashed. They are as brainwashed as the Cultural Revolution, you know, Mao's little red book. If they could, they would put us in re-education camps. But we're too strong, and we have our own new media now. So what we're seeing now are two tectonic plates, and things like Berkeley, you know, riots are little precursor shocks. But we're about to have the big rupture, the big slip fault rupture.
So the societal upheaval is upon us. I agree. And in slow motion, we're already here. A year is like a millisecond in history. I think that the plates are already shifting. The Islamists can't help it. They can feel the consciousness of their jihad, and they are already exploding. We'll be right back with Matt Bracken, former Navy SEAL. 25 hours and 24 minutes into this global 30-plus hour broadcast. We've decided to go all the way to 8 o'clock tonight. The next few hours, of course, are on all of our great affiliates across the country. Please support them. Please become sponsors. Please tell your friends, your neighbors, everybody you know about the stations, because we're in an information war. We're starting to win, but the enemy's launching its counteroffensive right now. And so I just cannot encourage you all enough to pray for this country, to pray for your own family, to pray for this broadcast, to pray for the world. We'll get into North Korea, Syria, and a lot more with Matt Bracken, best-selling author, counterterrorism expert, former Navy SEAL. Comes highly recommended by a lot of great patriots. I consider him a friend of mine now, though I've never met him in person. You can read all of his novels that get into a lot of stuff he couldn't put in a nonfiction. This is your short segment, long segment coming up. So, Matt, get back into the parallel or the allegory or the example of the tectonic plates of societal systems and uncompatible cultural systems and religious systems colliding. Matt Bracken.
Yeah, they're not. I wouldn't say that they're actually colliding. We're like living in parallel worlds. We're living alongside each other, but each in our own bubbles. We're not going to change the BuzzFeed crowd, and they're not going to change us. Now, we're better armed and we know tactics, but they control a little bit more. They can still control much more of the media, so they have more ability to control the national narrative. But neither one of us is going to win. So it's not about, I don't see us as winning the culture war. What we are going to do, though, is build up so much pressure with our two divergent and opposite visions of what America should be, that there's going to be like a big slip fault earthquake when these tectonic plates release all this pressure. It's going to be in the form of a brutal civil war, similar to, say, Argentina in the 70s, Northern Ireland, Spain in the 30s, that type of a civil war where there's not really a front line as much as a war right within the society. You know, drive-by shootings, bombings, snipings.
By the way, that's what I got at when I said more and more we're coming out of our bubbles, running into each other. And it's the left and the globalist calling for violence all over the world. Is there a way for us to basically get our revenge by living well and basically surviving and not being part of this? Is there any way to avert this?
No, there's no way to avert it, because as the left, the Antifa side, gets more desperate, something very important that's going on is this unmasking of Antifa. The Reddit and 4chan, weaponized autism guys are absolutely fantastic at collating all of these videos from different protests and putting names and criminal records onto these masked, anarcho-communists. But as they become unmasked, they're going to get more paranoid. We've talked about this before. It's going to be like the 60s with the SDS going underground as the weather underground. These guys that are getting unmasked are going to say, I'm not going to any more demonstrations. I'm going to take it to the next level. Something happened in Texas last week, I think, that's been vastly underreported.
The stabbing?
Because it's super important, because this is not, as far as we can tell, a Muslim-inspired stabbing attack, but a left BLM brainwashed person.
Sure, and this happened in and around the communists. And let me just add, our reporters were there, even got footage of him. The media covered this up, but the Antifa, we were interviewing these people. They were literally, and I'm not being mean about autism, but they literally were like half lobotomized, seriously mentally retarded, it seemed, could hardly talk, and were like zombies out of a movie. And that was the leaders. Most of them couldn't talk. So when we say weaponized autism, that's what the globalists have done.
Well, I have a short story I wrote a couple years ago called Professor Raoul X. That's if you just Google it, or on my website on my essays and links page. But these people that are the most emotionally fragile, disturbed individuals are the ones that will be the first to take up, the message. Especially in the university level, once you associate hate speech with violence, it becomes in their minds completely legitimate to use actual physical violence against people's ideas. So, for example, stabbing white frat boys becomes a legitimate act of self-defense to people who have been brainwashed.
That's right. It's a leftist jihad. And then the media points out, these are mental patients doing it. Yes, they're the ones that are susceptible and being drug in.
Exactly. And we're going to see more of that. Now, there was a story that somebody kicked to me this morning in Henrico, Virginia. A transformer was shot and then shot the next day so that the oil leaked out. And it seems to me like this was a test or a probe. How long does it take to replace the transformer? How many lights go out when we shoot one transformer? There was also a stadium, I forget, I think New England, a baseball game where...
Stay there. Let's flesh this out on the other side. You're absolutely on target. Meanwhile, every major channel, TV show says kill Trump, kill conservatives, kill patriots. They're not human. You can see this really being hyped up. So what do we do if they start a shooting war? We'll talk about it with Matt Bracken straight ahead. And we are now 25 hours, 33 minutes in the global transmission. We're going to go ahead and go 30-plus hours until 8 o'clock Central tonight. Infowars.com is the website that they hate, that they're attacking. We're getting ready to launch some new websites as well that are more modern designs. We have the classic Infowars for you as well. It is an act of resistance against these people when you spread the link Infowars.com or enemiesforeignanddomestic.com and all of our great guests. I'm going to open the phones up in about 10 minutes on any topic you want to raise, but mainstream media is calling for revolution now. Corporate globalist media is calling for their Antifa to get violent. 2 years ago, Newsweek said the case for rioting and said attack white people, burn things down. It's always weird George Soros-funded white people pushing this. This is their deindustrialization program. This is their plan to destabilize the country. This is their plan to have cultural Marxism. And you see the same thing with the Muslims in Europe. It's a larger program. We'll talk to Matt Bracken about it in a moment. 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to join us on this Thursday, the 4th day of May, 2017. But on May Day, we saw stabbings, we saw shootings, we saw burnings, we saw bombings, we saw Muslims attacking. They all work together. That's one of the few things that I just couldn't believe, that the so-called left, as bad as they were, would be allied with Islam when I was learning about it 20 years ago, 16 years ago. In the last 6, 7 years, people go, oh, you're an Islamophobe now. I never supported radical Islam or Orthodox Islam, the things it did. I just didn't want to go blow their countries up and stir them up. And, take out non-radical Muslims and put the bad ones in. which is what the globalists have done. It's part of a larger plan. They've opened Europe on purpose. So, yeah, I got Muslims on the mind now, folks, because the ones that do want to be free, they're heretics. And a lot of them are like that. But the ones running the show, go watch the movie The Promise. Very accurate about the Armenian genocide. What happened to Muslims didn't want to play ball. Now, we're killing all the Christians. We're running specials throughout the day. We're running some of the biggest specials in our history right now. And that's how you donate during a fundraiser. We lost basically all the extra money we had for the year that we had budgeted to fund things and fund some expansion. Because if you're not growing, you're dying against the globalists. And I'm throwing everything I got onto this, the savings, the backup, everything, to get more talk shows launched, more reporters, more investigative journalists, you name it. And look, we're changing the world. The globalists are scared. CNN came out and said, we're growing. You know, we're reaching, in some days, more people than they are. And we're not lying. We're telling the truth, which shifts paradigms. So support InfoWars and get life-changing products with our new Defense of Free Speech mega specials at InfoWarsStore.com. The establishment is launching a full-scale attack on InfoWars and free speech across the board. But thanks to your support, that will never actually be successful. And again, big fish eat little fish. We're growing in the face of this. Help us take the fight against the globalists to the next level and get super high-quality products at InfoWarsStore.com for the lowest prices. 30% off on Brain Force Plus, 20% off Secret 12, 20% off Living Defense Parasite Cleanse, 25% off on Biome Defense. That's the great probiotic, Winter Sun. And it goes on and on and on. DNA Force is back in, about to sell out. So is the bone broth formula, caveman formula with chaga mushroom, and so many other great things like bee pollen and turmeric. I mean, it's incredible. And your purchase funds the entire operation. Look at this review from Greg, an undisclosed location from Power Reviews. Brain Force Plus gave me mental stamina to win my case. Facing the fight of my life to keep the big banks from stealing my home, I took them to the federal court, only I didn't have a lawyer. Already my brain fog had lifted, thanks Survival Shield X2. But it was Brain Force that gave me the mental stamina to represent myself and save my home. Thanks, Brain Force Plus. That's InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com. Commit today. Sign up for auto ship on products that you already use and already like, many of you. Get 10% off, and then we know that we've got that money budgeted each month coming in from the thousands of folks that are signed up for auto ship at InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. And we've got the great crew here until 6 o'clock every day answering the phones, taking your orders. After that, it rolls over to an answering service we've had for 20 years here in Austin, and they do a great job as well. So InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. And a lot of people don't want to read fantasy-based stuff. A lot of people want to only read fiction because reality's too hardcore for them. But just like with James Wesley Rawls has woken up millions of people with his best-selling novels, it's the same thing with our guest, Matt Bracken, who I know. I've read 2 of his books. I've told my crew I want to carry all his books at InfoWarsStore.com, so let's get that done. But go to enemiesforeignanddomestic.com. He has his new novel out, and we'll talk about that before he leaves us at 20 after next hour. But I do want to go to calls in about 10 minutes. I'm going to try to give you the floor now because we've had some short segments here to flesh out this revolution they're trying to engineer, who the globalists are, how you think we can win this thing, and what happens if a shooting war starts, and what some of the scenarios are. Former Navy SEAL counterterrorism expert Matt Bracken from enemiesforeignanddomestic.com. Kind of recap for new audiences, please, and then let's get into the information you haven't covered yet.
First, my new book is not out yet. It will be in maybe 2 months. It's in the editing phase right now, but the cover is done. Cover art is done. I think that what we're going to see as the Antifas are getting pushed back and unmasked, which is going to make them very desperate, I think we're going to see a false flag shooting. And people say, well, why would you talk about something as horrible as this? Will it become a self-fulfilling prophecy? And the reason that I do, and it's in my first novel, it begins with somebody shooting into a stadium, to precipitate a panic stampede, a mass casualty terrorism act. By talking about these things in advance, I hope to sort of either take them off the table as tactics because the surprise element will be lost. And if they do happen, we'll be more prepared to...
Sure. But we have new people, thousands tuning in literally every minute. Recap briefly. the tectonic system going on, the globalist launched revolution that you believe is inevitable, and how you think that could unfold?
Yeah, the globalists are not going to surrender after Brexit and Trump, and we don't know what's going to happen in the French election next. But I think that they're moving to the burn down the house phase, which is when they absolutely have run the end of the rope out. You know, the banks are going to collapse eventually. They don't want to be held responsible. It's better to just precipitate a huge revolutionary era, you know, globally, a collapse, because they figure that, you know, they've got the wealth, the mansions, the castles, fortresses, stored food, gold, to ride out anything. And even if, you know, half the world's population was gone, they figure they'll be on top at the end, and they'll just come back and reclaim their ownership.
And by the way, we've been talking about that for a decade from our inside sources. Last 3 years, every major publication, the New Yorker magazine, New York Times, Associated Press, admit the billionaires are fleeing to Kauai, Hawaii. They're fleeing to other Hawaiian islands. They're fleeing to Tasmania. They're fleeing to even more rural areas and faraway areas. And building armored fortresses and even getting private security firms. Don't they know those very private security firms almost universally hate their guts? And then if everything really goes belly up, they're dead? I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Well, at the top, they're surrounded by yes men. So I think that they live in very insulated bubbles. And imagine being a Leonardo DiCaprio. Everybody around you is kissing your butt 24 hours a day. So, you know,
Sickening.
You're never going to get it is sickening. But these tectonic forces, we now can push back. We have a new media. You know, InfoWars is a big chunk of it. That's why BuzzFeed goes after you. I mean, I consider it praise, not a great thing, but like when the Southern Poverty Law Center goes after me or you, that's great. You're known by your enemies. If they thought you were nothing, they wouldn't pay any attention to you. They figure that you're becoming important, so that's why they try to...
Well, sure. Why do you think, and we'll get back in the scenario, they had Colbert, every other big night show, all the other TV channels, it's still ongoing every day, attacking, lying, spewing against me. I don't think I'm that important. I think we're a test case on how to destroy somebody.
I think that you are that important because you're the emerging new media. You know, we're already talking about Fox possibly breaking up. For now, Hannity's staying aboard. But I mean, there could very well be a breakup of Fox and a new conservative television network started. So yeah, there are big things happening in media. InfoWars is part of it. But you know, we're not going to win this information war. It's impossible to win because each side is getting their information through their own filter.
They've got too many zombies.
Yeah, but so we basically have these two forces, and actually it's worse than two tectonic plates, because in many of our cities and in many of our regions, we have three or more cultural and demographic
fault
elements.
lines.
Right. So there's going to be a big rupture of these fault lines. The big energy release is when all the buildings and bridges fall down, and socially it'll be catastrophic. So yeah, I think we're going to see more of these small attacks like the knife attack in Texas, but I think we're going to see transformer attacks going after the grid. It looks like a probe was done in Henrico, Virginia, with somebody shooting a rifle at a big transformer 2 nights in a row. So, which has the hallmarks to me of a test. A stray bullet supposedly landed in a stadium. That might have grazed a woman. That might have been a trajectory test.
And by the way, that's a great way to demonize guns, especially high caliber, if people start going after infrastructure with it.
And right, not only infrastructure, but other soft targets. And when a false flag like this is done, it's typically done against an ally group of either Islamists or leftists. These are both totalitarian ideologies that absolutely 100% believe the ends justify the means. Meaning, if we have to kill all the Christians, that's okay. Or if we have to set up gulags or slave labor camps, that's okay. So if it's a very effective tactic to use a false flag and have an act of terror blamed on your enemy, I would expect it'll be an ally group of Antifa that's shot. Say, for example, a woman's march. It won't be Antifa shooting Antifa, but it'll be an Antifa shooting an assault rifle, so-called, at say a woman's march or a global warming march.
And by the way, that all came out in the WikiLeaks that all over the country they funded women to go to start fights and be beaten up. And when that didn't work, they started hiring men to separately go do the beating up on camera, creating false flags. They were caught in false flags.
Yes, the false flags work. Wars have been started over false flags. The Germans did it with,
Operation Himmler.
Right. So there are, and many wars started by dictators start with a false flag. Now it's even more efficacious if you have a compliant stooge media that's not going to dig into the facts behind a false flag, but are just going to trumpet and parrot it 100%. So I think that the most likely scenario is not a bomb. Bomb making requires some skill, and the people that do it are likely to leave forensic fingerprints on their computer and so forth. But to shoot into a crowd and then leave right-wing literature at the scene, like I have in my first novel, Enemies, Foreign and Domestic.
It's perfect.
It's perfect because the national stooge media...
They'll jump right on it, and then you'll be a conspiracy 100%. Theorist if you question the official narrative.
Right, which is that right-wing gun nuts shot at peace-loving, global warming marchers. And, the Antifa types and the Islamists both absolutely think that is moral and valid and legitimate.
And let's expand on that now. British ambassador to Syria and others said, look, we've caught the rebels launching chemical attacks on Assad at least twice, 4 other times we're pretty sure. Now that Trump hit this thing within 2 days or whatever, we get they hadn't gotten rid of their chemicals. We get it made Trump look strong to China. And I get all the Machiavellian stuff. I don't like it. I get it. But I mean, the ambassador said now the jihadis will just stage more of these and other false flags to draw us into other things. So what do you think in general about what happened in Syria?
Well, false flags work. I mean, it's the old, who benefits? I forget the Latin for that.
Qui bono.
But yeah, so who benefits? 2 days after our UN ambassador is saying, it looks like Assad will be, stay in power. Lo and behold, a supposed sarin bomb explodes. I think that they had some kind of chemical weapon, the rebels, and just waited for a Russian airstrike to explode the bomb in the middle. This group called the White Helmets, they are ISIS, basically ISIS propaganda camera teams. They were the ones right on the spot.
They're the admitted propaganda corps of ISIS, absolutely.
And what a coincidence. Of all the Russian airstrikes in Syria, they just happened to be there with the cameras ready to roll, ready to go to the casualties. So, the symptoms.
Well, they've been caught working with them.
Absolutely. But if you have a compliant stooge media, the 50% of the country that gets their information from the mainstream media will never know these facts. So what we have...
And then they're going to try to come arrest the Patriot leadership. And at that point, nobody's wanting to start an offensive war. But at a certain point, I guess the police and military, we've woken up to a certain extent. And you look at the fissures, I think, and I'm not calling for this, I'm just saying if patriots, people that are properly trained and vetted, know what they're doing separately without any orders from headquarters, go after the command and control of the globalists, we could win this quite easily. The problem is they're all going to be offshore directing it through adjuncts and their minions. So that's why in an information war, we've got to start publicly identifying, just for informational purposes, of course, for law enforcement and for trials later, exactly who the adjuncts and aide-de-camps are to the globalists who will stay in the operational zone of the continental U.S. when they're trying a deconstruction operation.
And follow the money. And I hope, I don't know this, it's just my own hunch because I have known FBI special agents in the past. They seem to never make it to the high ranks. The FBI pyramid is pretty crazy, I
was about to say, it's really bad at the top, but mid-level and stuff, they're some of the most awake people.
They're super guys, and they're patriots, and they're very disturbed by what's going on. But the information that they're collecting might, at a later time, be put on files that are distributed. But if you follow the money from, George Soros and groups like him, it's the same in Europe with these groups that are bringing the refugees in from Libya. I mean, they wait a mile offshore on ships, and they have these 100-man Zodiacs, which they don't sell anywhere. These are
this is all industrialized, funded by Soros and funded by the big foundations. We're going to break. I want to come back and play a few clips and go to calls. But we have migrants are being sold at open slave markets in Libya after Hillary liberated it, as Assange is calling her the butcher of Libya. Your new book, I guess, is dealing with sex slavery and how this is ongoing. Right. I mean, this is incredible.
Yeah, it's you have to wonder, are they so naive that they think we're going to replace a Gaddafi or an Assad, or a Morsi in Egypt, and we're going to have Jeffersonian democracy or, break out? It's so naive. You always have to ask, what if Assad's gone? Will it be better to have 5 different Osama bin Laden
10 times worse.
Syria? It'll be 10 times worse.
By the way, if you're a radio listener, you're not watching us on TV. When I say something, the crew searches it. Soros is behind the fleet he just mentioned, shipping in millions of migrants into Italy and other countries like Greece and Macedonia. We'll be back with Matt Bracken and key intel straight ahead. So much going on, so much going on. A lot of bad stuff happening in the world. And about 90% of the time, you look at who funded the Arab Spring, George Soros, NATO. Look at who's funding radical Islam, same group. You look at who's funding all those big 100-foot Zodiac boats he was talking about, those big rubber boats. I mean, it's all done military style. Then they'll even take a dead kid and pose for photos on the side. Now, these are some sick people, folks. And you got Chobani Yogurt guy who promotes bringing in refugees suing us. And he's on the New York Federal Reserve Board and says Chobani's not bringing in refugees connected to sex crime. Well, technically not Chobani. We've corrected that. No, it's he's the one promoting it. And he says, well, the UN says it's okay, and all these other groups, it's just crazy. But I'm gonna go to your calls at like 6, 7 after next hour. I'm gonna go bam, bam, bam to John and Levi and Jesse and Chris and Eileen. You're gonna have Matt Bracken with us a little bit more in the next hour. I think you can do that. But I just want you to understand that when you go look at the zombie-like communists, that's what they are. They call it anti-fascist because communism's unpopular, but they're the Red Guard, they're the Mao Brigade, and they are like zombies. I understand that the autism, anti-globalist autism brigades on Reddit are people that are calling themselves autistic, not in a mean way, saying they have like Asperger's and they're obsessed with being on the computer 20 hours a day. When I talk about autism brigades, I guess I'm coining the term, not in a mean way, but saying it's like they're getting autistic youth. They all pretty much fit the same deal, and then brainwashing them into all this hate, whether they're black, white, Hispanic, they all have the same MO. Extremely shriveled, sunken, unable to speak. They look like zombies. They look like people you hear about, from real cult events that have come out of cults. And that's what this is, folks. How would you support North Korea or Maoist China or Venezuela and while you have a smartphone and expensive tennis shoes? So here's a few of those clips from a few days ago with the Antifa Mayday stabbings and the rest of it. Here it is.
So the communists are now making their way inside they have a little wagon of communist memorabilia right there. They're going to take inside somewhere. Being heckled mercilessly.
All right, let's go to the next clip. We've got a mindlessly unable to speak. That's the clip I want to play, but we'll just go through them all. Here's the next clip. This is Austin on Monday.
That's pretty good. What else you got to say?
InfoWars.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
You too, you fascist.
Oh yeah, I'm a
you fascist. You fascist.
Oh wow.
You fascist.
Look, this is the intelligence you get from these people. This is funny.
You fascist. You fascist.
You're a joke. Yeah, this guy's a total joke. That was pretty funny. That was pretty funny.
They're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems.
Now, we've got a bunch more. I'm going to go to break, come back, play those for Matt, talk about it, then I promise go to your phone calls and get your take on all this. But we have other footage. There was one we played on Monday, or it was Tuesday, the day after, where he was trying to talk to them, and they looked like zombies, and they were like, but it's racist, and you've got to be against it, and we've got to do it. That's the clip I wanted to play. But we also have this clip that was on YouTube of a lady seeing a guy with a billboard on his bicycle, mobile advertising, promoting InfoWars, and a teacher comes over. She says she's a teacher and says, I need to be killed for my views. So it's not just sad little communists who I've talked to a lot of them. They never really had a mother. They were never breastfeed. They were left in their cribs. They're really lonely little stunted people. You know, your brain's about a third less large CC size if you weren't breastfed. It's just a fact. And if you're not held and loved as a child, I'm just telling you, there's a causal connection. These people are really pathetic little zombies. We'll be right back with the third hour with Matt Bracken. I'm Alex Jones.
Thank you for listening to GCN. Visit GCNlive.com today.
Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Visit InfoWarsLife.com to secure your canister. We have worked for years with our chemists and scientists to create the most powerful and affordable, great-tasting multivitamin formula available. Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix at InfoWarsLife.com is loaded with a full month's supply of essential vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that your body absolutely needs. In the history of InfoWars Life, we've brought out a lot of amazing products like Survival Shield X2, Super Male Vitality, and so many others. With its unique delivery system and proprietary manufacturing process designed for maximized effects, this formula is the platinum standard of multivitamin mineral products. And this part is most important. The ingredients in Vitamin Mineral Fusion are either plant-derived or of the highest quality lab standard. That means it's clean. That means it's pure. And rest assured, you're fighting the tip of the spear in the info war. That's InfoWarsLife.com and Vitamin Mineral Fusion. Take action now before we sell out.
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order, it's Alex Jones.
From the front lines of the information war.
Waging war on corruption, it's Alex Jones, coming to you live from the front lines of the info war.
And we're having an effect. Because of you. What's he saying? V for Vendetta. The detective says, the inspector says, why didn't you do this before? The police captain says, why didn't you take action earlier? And he says, I was waiting for you, Inspector. I was waiting for you. Don't think Matt Bracken's going to save the world, or Matt Drudge is, or Donald Trump, or anybody. We all have to educate and take action. I'll say this, though. I was talking to Mike Cernovich last night, a bunch of other people. They told me that, look, most of these liberals know they're mercenaries. They hate it, but that's the only job they've got. And that actually the left more and more is listening to this show, and that's why they're actually trying to demonize us, is because for whatever reason, we're deprogramming people. Because the Alex Jones Show, InfoWars, I'm changing the name to InfoWars Live, not Alex Jones Show. I don't like that name, but I was ordered to have like 20 years ago. It's Alex Jones for the ratings, just say Alex Jones. This is InfoWars Live. It's about my guest host. It's about the people, this whole system. We're playing clips right now. Matt will pop in at the next segment and co-host with us for a little bit more, the whole hour if he wants, enemiesforeigndomestic.com. But here's just some of the zombies we ran into while the stabbing was going on, all the rest of it. Just literally hopeless, well-meaning commies. Here it is.
I'm doing good. What you protesting today?
We're protesting capitalism.
Yeah?
The evils of capitalism.
Looking at a smartphone.
Yeah? And what are you going to replace it with?
Communism.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How many people are you going to kill to replace it with communism?
By any means necessary.
By any means necessary.
Whatever's necessary.
That's the other group.
By well-meaning, they think they're good. Like Hitler.
We're the Red Guard.
We're the Red Guard.
Oh, yeah, we're also replacing the First Amendment. No more hate speech. No First Amendment.
No more hate speech.
Now, that's an evil
Get
person.
rid of the First Amendment.
Here's one of the useful idiots that comes over. Just look at these people. They look like lobotomized Smurfs.
And where, who is?
The blue cap, you might want to check that out. Like I was telling you, these are fascist Nazis. The term snowflake comes from Nazi Germany.
No, it doesn't, dumbass.
The ashes that would fall.
You can't attach all language to something evil, you claim.
The social justice warriors crying about everything and telling people how to talk?
No. That's where it comes from.
By the way, I'm not trying to be mean to these people. Look, they all look like something's wrong with them. I guarantee you these kids never got loved by their mother. These were crib babies.
These guys are Nazis. I don't see anybody wearing
God, look at them.
or anything.
The Daily Stormer, man.
The Daily Stormer, man.
I see a bunch of people covering their faces saying they want a communist
The
revolution.
guy wearing that hat's probably Southern Poverty Law Center.
Well, it's about equality. Why are you more concerned with that than Nazis?
Why are you more concerned with that?
We went to
Communists killed 10 times what the Nazis did.
Thousands of Americans died to defeat the Nazis.
Defeat the Nazis?
And so, obviously, the communist regime of Russia did have a part in taking
This
down
is a
the
well-meaning guy. Enough of him.
But why do you
Let's
think
go out to break. It's 5 minutes long. It's up on Infowars.com. We just posted. I'm going to tweet it out. Here's a teacher in New Orleans just running up saying, I need to die. We'll go out to break with us and come back with Matt Bracken's take. Here it is.
You're saying someone that gets up there and speaks, you want to kill them. Is that what you're saying? No. There's no you authoritarian bastard. Stay right here.
I have nowhere to vent what I have to say. Let me do it here because it doesn't matter.
Alex Jones needs to be killed. Is that what you're saying?
I am.
So free speech. What do you got against free speech?
Okay, you know
What do you got against free speech, lady?
I want you to listen to the other side. Now, this is totally different than what you think. Okay?
Okay.
I want Alex Jones to be taken out for brainwashing. Not free speech. I believe in free speech. You know what we were just doing? We were speaking freely, weren't we? And right
But you're saying you want to stop someone who has a news program that millions of people listen to, and you want to go ahead and eliminate his brain? You want to get him.
Stay there. She comes back and keeps saying she wants me dead. Hey, lady, pause. We're going to play more of it later. It's up on Infowars.com. Hey, you got to line up, sweetheart. You want to kill me. And by the way, I get killed. I don't want it to happen because I got children. I win either way. See, I chose this. They always threaten me and do stuff and like, you know, we'll kill you. Oh, really? I didn't know that when I got into this. I'm not brainwashing anybody. I'm telling the truth historically, and I don't like you bullies, and I'm taking you on. And guess what? We're going to beat you. Long run, you're not stopping our species, and you're going to be defeated. I don't need to kill you, lady. You look like a zombie. You can barely talk. So, of course, a weak person like you runs their mouth about killing people. They have a vote on exemption for Congress from health care bill. They're having a vote on that so that Congress can't be exempt from it. And they're trying to pass the Obamacare repeal today in the House. We'll be following that. I want to go to your phone calls very, very soon. Matt Bracken is our guest. EnemiesForeignAndDomestic.com, best-selling author, former Navy SEAL, anti-terrorism expert, really smart guy. He's been on hold the last 10 minutes while I played some clips of communists in Austin, basically saying they want to kill people. They need to kill people to bring in their utopia. And then a teacher in New Orleans just a few days ago with a fellow we've had on as a guest who goes around with a bicycle that he powers by pedaling with a big Jumbotron TV, putting up patriotic messages. And people didn't just donate so he can go around town doing that. The guy's been doing that in like 6-7 years. Great guy. So he told us this happened. I went and watched the footage. She's saying, no, I need to be killed for brainwashing. She's for free speech, but I'm brainwashing when I show you USA Today last week saying women wear hijabs to stand up to Trump for feminism. When they cut your genitals off, put hoods over your heads and you're slaves, you can't drive a car. And a man can rape you and then you get executed for adultery. That's not brainwashing. I'm calling your brainwashing. Matt Bracken, watching and listening to those clips, what do you make of that?
Well, the people that get in the faces of people at these rallies, they're the useful idiots. You know, they're the grunts, the cannon fodder. I see that from that first clip where the guys with the hoods in a line along the sidewalk, somebody passed along a good, useful trick. It's an old hunter's trick where you just take a T-shirt and the neck becomes your eye slit. You tie the short sleeves behind your head. That way you've just got a T-shirt in your backpack and not a balaclava. So it looks better if you're stopped by the police. But the guy that was in the picture was such an idiot that his T-shirt was inside out and the little tag, you know, little made in China tag was over his nose.
Yes.
So really pretty funny. But yeah, these are just their function is just to continuously strike sparks, trying to light a conflagration. You know, they're hoping to provoke a patriot into pulling out a gun, something like that. That's their goal, is to, you know, create a flashpoint incident. But what I fear is going to happen is somebody on our side will be assassinated, and within, you know, weeks after that, I think that's when a civil war will break out into a kinetic phase, because as soon as a figure from the new media is assassinated, then it's going to be an open season on mainstream media propagandists. And
that's right. And that's why, and then they say, oh, the president's called us the enemy when they're calling him the enemy. It's his fault. You know, Wolf Blitzer or whoever, God forbid, gets shot, Stephen Colbert or whatever. But if you expand on that, they're the ones calling for violence. They created the environment. They're the ones pushing for Trump to be killed. You know, this BuzzFeed thing comes out. They wanted the president dead. Now the Pentagon pulls security clearance of Trump White House aide, Adam S. Lovinger, a 12-year strategic affairs analyst with the Pentagon's Office of Net Assessment, has been on loan from the NSC since January, when he was picked up for the position by then National Security Advisor Flynn. So they're getting rid of everybody that Flynn was involved in as well. I want to go to some phone calls now with Matt Bracken, but briefly, any other points you wanted to make?
Yeah, the swamp is winning. I think that, drain the swamp was a great sentiment, and Trump came into the White House, with the best of intentions. But the swamp is not just surrendering. All the alligators and vipers down in there,
pythons,
are fighting back, and it's not just even controlling the White House with a patriot shows how strong the deep state really is.
Well, sure, the president's not a dictator, despite the fact that the news is constantly calling him one. It's truly sickening. Let's go ahead and start taking some calls from John, Brendan, Jesse, Chris, Eileen, and many, many others. Let's go ahead and take a call from Jesse in Tennessee, the volunteer state. You're on the air.
The stars at night are big and bright.
Deep in the heart of Texas. Go ahead, brother.
Exactly. So we got Stephen Colbert on TV as one of these Pentagon late-night talk show hosts, and he's drudging up Putin. And before that was Jimmy Kimmel trying to play our heartstrings. What do you think about Jimmy Fallon broadcasting for a week from a petting zoo, claiming that he's got separation anxiety from Hillary?
Well, that sounds good. He's also running down our healthcare system. He's got tens of millions of dollars and then claiming, his son has this heart condition. And so we all have to accept Obamacare. That's a screw job. It's going to bankrupt our healthcare. It's all just manipulating the public. I'm sad his child has a heart condition. It's just always playing on the heartstrings. I mean, they have free healthcare in Venezuela, but nobody can even get food. Same thing in Cuba.
It's always the self-image. They always go after your self-image. I think it's all they really have left. The late-night talk show hosts, and your reporters are outpacing the entire mainstream media. You've got Rob Dew and Millie out there. Millie is just running circles around these protesters. It's nuts.
She is. And look, that's why it's so critical that all of you, the listeners and viewers, spread the articles, the videos, financially support us, because we're the best there is right now. Doesn't mean I'm perfect. My crew's awesome. And we're trying hard, but we're not funded by George Soros or big corporate money. We're funded by you buying great products that everybody needs that are discounted right now during this fundraiser at InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. Yeah, what do you make of Colbert, who always wants everybody else banned off the, radio or TV if they make a, quote, homophobic statement, and then everything becomes homophobic, and you can't make a joke saying that somebody's butt boy, like he claimed Trump was Putin's minion. It was saying he's subservient to him, but Trump's not subservient to Putin from my research, Matt. I want to get your take on that. He's subservient to the globalists that want us to have conflict with Russia because Russia's in conflict with radical Islam.
Yeah, I look at incidents like Stephen Colbert doing his sort of like the Colbert scream, the primal scream. The globalists are feeling a lot of pain because they no longer control the narrative. And that is a source of tremendous anxiety for them. So I expect them to ratchet their humor up into more open calls for assassination, which will be like the Professor Raoul X, parallax view type of nudging the mentally unstable people towards acts of violence.
Sure, making it palatable, making it acceptable, making it what a hero does, like the guy from England that came here, grabbed a gun, tried to kill Trump, other events. Great point. Let's talk to a caller in the great state of Idaho. Let's talk to John. John, you're on the air.
How's it going? So I actually live in the Twin Falls area. I'm hearing a lot of the rhetoric of what's going on with the Chobani lawsuit. A lot of the talk shows in the area are basically ridiculing you and trying to paint a bad picture about InfoWars.
Well, yeah, what we saw here in Austin is a test of that. Can the media go in and manipulate a pool of people? This is a new modern test to then try to shut somebody down. But the word is that's not going to be too successful. But yeah, I've seen the local papers. I mean, they claim Chobani isn't even basically a Muslim. The owner of it, he never tried to bring anybody even though he admits he works with Soros to do it. So I mean, it's a big joke.
I'm a little concerned that you might have a hard time getting a fair jury that's not already been swayed.
Yep. Well, that's why folks need to support us, because we're not going to stop. People think this is a fight, and the enemy isn't going to strike back. They are.
Yeah. Well, and then Also, you guys, excuse me, Homeland making fun of you with their own version of a...
Well, yeah, they don't just make fun of me. They admit it's a character to me that has fake news, that plants fake stories, that has bots. And, of course, it's the government and the media that have the bots, not us. And that's why they're coming after us. Yeah, they've got all these TV shows, you name it. I appreciate your call. And I want to make it about me. I just want the audience to understand. We've been chosen as the case point to destroy. You put money behind us. You spread our articles and videos. You get around their bots trying to block us. You defeat them. This InfoWars cannot lose, though, as long as I don't give up and you don't give up. Because even if we fall like the Alamo, it'll be remember InfoWars, remember Alex Jones. But I think we're going to win. I mean, we're so strong. It's crazy. For every attack they throw against us, it's Newtonian physics. We just end up getting that much more support back. Matt Bracken, you want to comment on that?
I was about, you stole my thought. That's exactly right. It's like Paul Joseph Watson's new T-shirt. Conservatism is the new counterculture. These late night comedians, unless you're really one of the lobotomized old uber lefties, it's like Soviet propaganda comedians making fun of Reagan. I mean, it just doesn't work. The more that they attack you, the stronger that you get. They think that they're applying their leverage against you, but it's sort of like a judo move. The leverage is strengthening you. And
well, I don't want to get into myself, but they've turned. I mean, I was already an icon with the listeners. I'm not bragging; it's a dangerous position. But they've really. I've talked to high-level folks. They even admit it now in congressional hearings, publicly, but also privately. They say they're scared of InfoWars, and they say they're scared of our audience and the focal point in our guests. So they're scared of you. They're scared of Ron Paul. They say we're fake news and internal Google documents because Ron Paul came on. They say, oh, he's not credible. No, he is credible with the left as well. So it's all doublespeak. But man, why are they so horrified of InfoWars, Matt? I mean, they really are horrified.
Well, they were used to controlling the entire narrative. At least from the Second World War, when we were thoroughly infiltrated by communists, they turned Senator McCarthy into an evil devil and succeeded at it because they ran the entire news media, except 99% of it. National Review, which was read by like 0.002 people. Otherwise, it was CBS, NBC, ABC. That was it. And now they've got an alternate new media.
For the first time, they've got a fight on their hands.
But what's happening, I have to go back to the tectonic plates. What's happening is each side is pushing harder. Eventually, it's going to be a big slip, and then we have a civil war.
Absolutely. Stay right there. We're going to come back with more calls with Matt Bracken, enemiesforeignanddomestic.com. Infowars.com is our site. Spread that URL. We are on the march. The globalist empire is on the run. But I agree with Bracken. In fact, I don't agree with him. It's a fact. The globalists and their socialists and Islamist minions have decided the course is war, destabilization, infighting, racial conflict. They're the ones selling it. They're the ones doing it. They're the ones spewing it with their fake intellectual garbage and just manipulating the poor people to actually celebrate and want to live in communism when our poor are the best off in the world. We're taking more phone calls with Matt Bracken right now. I got a bunch of clips coming up in the next segment and more calls. Let's go ahead and talk to Chris in Florida. You're on the air worldwide during our 30-plus hour global transmission against tyranny and defense of the West.
So the anti-fascists ask what could be more fascist than the usury-ridden corporate currency credit system of the privately owned Federal Reserve. That's as far from capitalism as you can get. Some of the more conscientious anti-fa folks would get this point, but with not...
Sure, and let's not forget the Federal Reserve, basically the same banks that set it up, helped write the Communist Manifesto and the 10 planks, which calls for a central bank and an income tax. Everything we got in 1913, Russia got in 1917.
Right, and with not only the anti-fa folks, but also with immigrants, we can all agree with a higher standard of living, the immigrants taking our jobs wouldn't be a concern. But if we awaken them to our common enemy, the privately owned national banks, the Federal Reserve.
That's right. It's the mega rich who almost to a person, because they won't let anybody else get that rich so they kill you, want a global consolidation. So they want failed ideologies to control us like communism. That's a great point. Let me get Matt Bracken's take. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, it's nothing is really new under the sun. Each generation thinks they're inventing this all over again. But, if you go back to the early part of the 20th century, we saw the same thing with, bankers paying Trotsky's way back to Russia, helping Lenin get back into Russia. They like to get in on the ground floor, even with a communist regime.
And then, by the way, that's mainline history books admit that New Yorkers and Americans and people out of London, 100 plus thousand fighting men who have been Russian immigrants, many of them Jewish, went back to Russia and overthrew it. That's a historic fact.
Yeah, and people like Armand Hammer, made fortunes dealing with these bloodthirsty, tyrannical regimes.
And who was his right-hand man? Al Gore Sr.
Right, and as long as you get in on the ground floor, you're going to become mega wealthy. I mean, somewhere in North Korea, there are probably Europeans that are making out like bandits.
That's the only black guy. I mean, Russia does a lot of bad stuff, but Russia does use slave labor out of North Korea. They actually import them on trains. They're like robots. They do whatever they're told. And Russia has a small border with them, as you know, and a railroad. And Russia does use North Korean slave labor.
Yeah, for timber, things like that. There's actually a book out. I forget the name of it. A Korean who was captured by the Russians. In the Second World War, a Korean who wound up captured by the Japanese, forced into fight for the Japanese against the Russians, captured by the Russians, then captured by the Germans, then captured by the Americans. He wound up in like 5 or 6 different uniforms.
Yeah, I read a magazine article about that book. I forget the name of the book.
Right, but yeah, it's war can be pretty funny. The bedfellows, but yeah, we're in an interesting time because it's 100 years since the Bolshevik Revolution. And I think there is something to these cycles where it takes a certain number of generations for people to just forget and then think we're now in a whole new phase of history.
That's right. And for every action, as you said, there's an equal opposite reaction. The globalists are trying to launch their new communist revolution controlled by the mega banks. We're launching our counter-revolution. So all these things come at the same time. You have the fake Jacobin communist, proto-communist French Revolution that came a few years after our real revolution.
But this time, there's going to be a real pushback. You can have a Russian revolution.
With unarmed people.
They disarmed the Russians coming back from World War I. They were disarmed. The soldiers returning.
They ordered the general staff to turn their weapons in. Then they killed them a few months later. Then they killed the non-commissioned officers. And then, boy, the rest was history.
And the difference is this country, we've learned from these sad lessons of history, and we have patriots, millions of them. I'm sure there are probably 20 times more American civilians with AR-15s than there are.
I was about to say in closing, Matt, let's take some time out to thank the forebearers to give us the right. We already had it, but they bequeathed it and actually defended it and secured it. They didn't give it to us, but they helped crystallize it so that we would have this time bomb against tyranny, this Excalibur in the year 2017.
That's what it is. That's it. That's a perfect analogy. It is our Excalibur. They put it in the stone so that it could be pulled out when it was needed, and it might be the time now. And I think that if I can recommend reading one of my short stories, What I Saw at the Coup, I think we're going to start seeing when it goes kinetic, and we start.
Hold on, do 5 more minutes. When it goes kinetic with Matt Bracken, straight ahead. In a moment, I'll give you a little history lesson on Excalibur and the archetype and the Welsh/Britannic Albion ethos. But I wanted Matt Bracken to be able to finish up just some other key points, and I'll go right back to your questions. But let me introduce myself. I'm Alex Jones, and I'm trying to fight the globalist, satanic, selfish system. We've already had them introduce themselves to us, and we know what they're all about. It's time we introduce ourselves to them and say, get behind me, Satan. Matt Bracken of enemiesforeignanddomestic.com. Go ahead and make those points about the kinetic level if we enter the kinetic realm. Because we're already there with them calling for it. Their attacks, their probing, their tracking, their demonization of us. They're saying, kill us. We're subhuman. We're demons. And I look at their weak throngs, never involved in violence, never involved in the execution of raw physical power. Those that generally are respected, even if they're good or bad. And it's almost comical to see them trying to enter a more chivalrous domain.
Well, it's rather pathetic. These guys wearing the masks seem like scrawny little weaklings. But I did see a video, this John Brown shooting club or whatever they call it. They are getting some weapons training.
Oink, oink, bang, bang, kill the cops.
But I don't expect them to match up in any kind of tactical way, but they don't need to. But I do expect a firearms false flag, either shooting into a crowd of liberals or shooting a liberal media figure. But once media figures are targeted, media figures, and I would have to also say judges that are involved in disputed court cases. And I'm not saying it would be from the right or from the left, but if a left-wing judge, say a judge that's involved in Amnesty Open Borders movement, using their robe as their weapon, as their means of achieving power, when one of these judges is killed, there will be right-wing propaganda left, some kind of like a right-wing connection. Then we're going to see a back and forth. And once judges and media figures have to go into hiding, it's going to completely change the nature of media in this country. When a Stephen Colbert or an Alex Jones, for example, is taken out, I see a rapid escalation, and it's going to be at that point a sniper battle with people hunkering down and going into hiding. Then we're going to see bombs. The mails are harder to use for bombing anymore.
Sure, but how do we get around the fact that the globalists will be in control of most of the major city police forces? They're going to order them out, hoping we get in a civil war with them. What do you recommend the police do? I've had a lot of them talk to me about this. They're fully aware of what's going on. What do we do when they know it's the globalists and Soros that are launching the operations to try to federalize them, to get them killed, to get them intimidated into Strong Cities Initiative under the UN? And even though Trump's in, still those programs roll forward because the deep state's in rebellion. What do we do when cops that aren't even bad guys have a fake warrant to come get you and take you to some sports stadium where communists are going to torture the hell out of you? I mean, I'm sorry. I don't want to fight the cops, but, I mean, if they're following illegal orders, I have no choice but to defend myself.
By that point, we'll be in the middle of a shooting civil war, and it will be more like in Argentina in the 70s Civil War. With death squads, which will be some policemen off duty or retired, ex-military, etc. But it'll be drive-bys, Molotov cocktails through the window, that kind of a war. It'll be very ugly, and at that point, I don't know what what's going to be left of the media.
Well, sure, and I don't want to brag about the conservatives and the patriots, but I mean, wouldn't you say on average they're about 20, 30, 40 times, I don't want to exaggerate, 50 times, more trained, more vicious, more focused, more committed, with more will than the type of scum we're going to be fighting if this happens?
Especially if you say who can take targets out at 500 yards plus. If you're talking about 500-yard riflery, then it's probably 100 to 1. But it doesn't, so the street demonstrations will probably be outlawed because they'll attract shooters. The street demonstrations will start to look like Berlin in the 1930s, with open warfare between
street battles, the beer hall putsch.
Right, street battles, and then we're going to be into a whole new realm. But I think that once a few high-profile media figures are assassinated, then I can't tell what's going to happen. But this shooting of the Transformers in Henrico, Virginia, everybody with a rifle gets a veto on electricity, and it doesn't suit many people to have the lights go out, but enough people will say, you know what, I hate the people on the other side of the river, and if I blow up that transformer, their power goes down. The people on that side of the river are going to say, how come they still have their lights on? Transformers are so vulnerable.
And the tit for tat spreads from there.
The tit for tat, and at the end of the day, and my biggest fear is the power goes down. I don't focus on, would it be an EMP, a solar flare?
Our civilization is based on the mutual respect and the social compact, social contract, and that's being deliberately broken by the globalists to usher in chaos. And bottom line, the only hope we have of averting this is an well-educated, informed information warfare culture that spreads the word so aggressively we break the back of this. And then if we go into shooting war, it's essential that the globalists that are going to try to do this from 5,000 miles away be brought to justice by hook or by crook, folks. And so that's the bottom line.
If they can't be brought to justice because they're sitting in Patagonia in a fortified
compound,
but the minions, the downstream minions, follow the money. The loyal, patriotic, honorable FBI special agents that have this information, they've got to safeguard this information and in time get it to the patriots, because it's it's the mid-level minions. You know, it's not these goofballs with the black masks. You know, these retards with the black masks, and we can't reach George Soros. But there are all of these levels in between. Who's the New Zealand Loudon, the New Zealand documentarist? Gosh, I can't think. Who's done fantastic work exposing the money, how it flows from Soros to DNC.
I know he is. He's the older guy. Does a great job. It's
right. It's essential that we find out all of these mid-level links. You know, the ones that are passing out the money, the ones that are renting the halls and all these fleets of buses. Those are the guys that have to be. They will be key enemies to take out. You know, without them, the street thugs are nothing. And the street thugs are nothing, basically, once it goes shooting.
And let's be clear, we're not trying to plan anything offensive here. They're all over TV saying, kill the president, kill us. They're organizing for war. They're saying they're coming to kill us. We have to try to fix things peacefully, but to secure peace, we have to prepare for war as well.
And everybody, it's very important. There are so many scenarios where this goes sideways. You know, nobody, at the beginning.
What if they kill Trump? The guy's got a lot of courage. He's really out there. We know they've, compromising with his security. I mean, who believes that senior Secret Service agent left that stuff in her car?
Exactly. So for sure. And I think that the chances that of something like that happen, it can happen. And it could be some other thing that will originally be called a black swan event, even though in retrospect, black swans are all, foreseeable. But people put on their blinders. 9/11 was foreseeable, but we didn't foresee it in time.
All right, Matt, you got to come back next week. Just we need to put you on. And by the way, I'm going to launch a bunch of roundtable shows with 3 people, 5 people, you name it, and syndicate them. Our stations want to pick them up all over the country, and I want to work with GCN on that if they're able to. But I'm going to want to launch it the next couple months. So we need to talk to you and a lot of other folks about doing that. You wouldn't have to do it every day because it'd be roundtables. If you wanted to do one every day, you'd be welcome to. And you've got great audio, great equipment. You sound great. We want to send you some more stuff, but try to get you on board. So let's stay in contact, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bet. Thanks.
You bet. I also want to set up some more command and control centers around the country, smaller sub studios in case. Let's just be honest, in case this one gets wiped out, because there's been. I don't mean physically. There's a lot of stuff going on. Just leave it. And that's the greatest form of victory is replication, not just having children, but foundations and systems that live on past you, like Excalibur, which is the great mythos archetype. I'm going to go to Carlos. I'm going to go to Eileen. I'm going to go to Isaac, Brenda, and Robert before this hour ends. We got a bunch of other guest hosts coming in and more. But since I talked about Excalibur as an example, as an allegory, as a parable, as a parallel, let me go over Roland and the whole archetype of the French mythos and the Dark Tower. You've got the British mythos, the Welsh myth that comes out of course, King Arthur. That was a true person, but went into myth and legend. And other cultures have their mythos. But the Second Amendment is Excalibur in that it's only there when you need it for defense against tyranny. And then when you have to pull the sword, there's a great responsibility that goes with being armed and being an armed culture. Because in those old feudal systems, everybody but the nobility was disarmed. That's what feudalism was. And in fact, they didn't have feudalism in the Arthurian time in Albion. Everybody was armed. And it was when the Saxons got conquered by the Norse in 1100 and change, by William the Conqueror, that then the true feudalism began under the Viking kings. So you have to understand this myth goes back to when everybody was armed, but to pull the sword of kingship, you had to have the birthright, and that's a spiritual birthright. And so now we have this, one of the only countries where we're still armed, passed on to us by our ancestors. Excalibur, or Caliburn, is the legendary sword of King Arthur, sometimes attributed with magical powers associated with the rightful sovereignty of Great Britain. And again, it's the original Welsh system. Sometimes Excalibur and the Sword of the Stone, the proof of Arthur's lineage, are said to be the same weapon. And then it goes on with their Gaelic name. And then there's the forms and etymologies of that. But the reason this is important is America is hated by the globalists because the people that set up America believed that they were actually setting up the new system of human empowerment and freedom. And so, again, it's that archetypal birthright of pulling the sword from the stone that's handed down to you, but that most people walk by and you know, just think of as myth, even though it's sitting right there in the middle of the forest for all of us to see. People can't pull it for, you know, generations, so they just begin to ignore it and say no man can pull it. But you've got to be pure of heart. You've got to realize that all of you that are listeners to this show and that are called to fight globalism and called to expose forced abortion and all these great tyrannies, you have pulled the sword. You have a relationship with Jesus Christ, and that's your true birthright. And God's forbearance or forgiveness, like the blood on the mantle or the blood on the doorframe, so the angel of death passes you by. But you've got to pull the sword. The sword is waiting. Many of you were born with this birthright. You love God, but you are a passerby. You are not truly living yet because you haven't taken on the weight of the sword. You have to pull it, and then you have to be able to hold it, and then you have to be able to wield it. And it doesn't mean you're ever going to wield it perfectly, but you've got to be wanting to do good and not be a coward and not care what the globalists say about you and the media says about you, and then you can swing the sword. And that's why the globalists hate us. I've been on air 22 years, and InfoWars has pulled the sword of Excalibur. We have the sword. Doesn't mean we're even worthy fully to have the sword, but I have the sword. You have the sword. But InfoWars is the very manifestation of pulling Excalibur from the stone. And that's why the enemy's scared, because we've pulled the sword, ladies and gentlemen. We can barely hold it up right now in our journey, learning to wield the power. But all over the world, the evil has intensified to such a point that good is now coming back into the universe, back into the world, back into our plane. Because people have gotten humble. They have repented. They have gotten in front of God at 3 a.m. and you know, prayed for deliverance from this. And there will be persecution and tribulation and bad things happening to you when you pull that sword. But what comes, bondage and enslavement and abject evil, is much worse if you don't pull the sword and stand. And when I say pull the sword, I mean that metaphysically, spiritually, to stand against the enemy. Not to ridicule those that try to stand against the enemy and who stumble sometimes, but still try at the great deeds. But to join us on the field. Excalibur is waiting. One more quote of Alexander Solzhenitsyn from his Nobel Prize-winning Gulag Archipelago. Then he realized we were going the same way as communist Russia and went back to Russia to try to reform it, which he had some success on. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was in decades in a forced labor camp, and how we burned in the camps later thinking, what would things have been like if every security operative, when he went out at night to make an arrest, had been uncertain whether he would return alive and had to say goodbye to his family, or if during periods of mass arrest, as for example in Leningrad, when the arrests a quarter of the entire city, people had not simply sat there in their lairs, pawing with terror at every bang on the downstairs door, at every step on the staircase, but had understood they had nothing left to lose and had boldly set up in the downstairs hall an ambush of a half dozen people with axes, hammers, pokers, whatever else was at hand. The organs, that's the systems, the machine, would have quickly have suffered a shortage of officers and transport, and notwithstanding all of Stalin's thirst for blood, I added that, the cursed machine would have ground to a halt if we didn't love freedom enough. And even more, we had no awareness of the real situation. We purely and simply deserved everything that happened afterward. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, The Gulag Archipelago, 1918 to 1956. I read the book, the whole thing's that well written. Had a lot of time to think about it, decades in a forced labor camp. In frozen Siberia. Visited upon them by the company that previously founded Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs funded the Bolshevik Revolution. That's public. And Goldman Sachs is funding taking your guns and breaking up your family and screwing your kids up as best they can, sexualizing them at age 5. I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk to Eileen first out of the gates. Briefly, we have donation pages set up at InfoWarsStore.com and InfoWars.com/show. $10, $100, whatever. It takes a lot to run this, and I am expending everything we've got and trying to expand the face of the enemy because we have a responsibility to do that. So whether you donate by getting great products and trying them out or signing up for auto ship and getting additional 10% off, whatever you do, take action. I mean, there are a lot of you out there that are wealthy, that have billions of dollars, I know, that listen, hundreds of millions of dollars. Give us $100,000. We've had donations that big before, and it's really gone towards fighting the globalist. Takes a lot to prosecute this war. You can sit there and pretend there's not a war and just hope it all passes you by, or you can be part of the animating contest of liberty and buy great products you need, supplements, water filtration systems, great Patriot apparel to meet like-minded people, all sorts of other great items, hundreds, close to 1,000 items, great nutraceuticals, or you can just flat out donate. Please do today. That'll help me understand how much support we've got to whether we're going to expand or just stay the same size in the face of this. But I think you want us to go 110%. Well, that's up to you, and I want to thank you all for your support. InfoWarsStore.com. All right, let me get to your phone calls. But I'm going to do a little bit of the next hour with Rappaport because I want to play this clip where Bill Nye in the 90s had a show saying there's only 2 genders. That's scientific. It's a fact. Now they're re-airing it on Netflix with his new show, Saves the World, where he says, you know, trannies are the science. They've edited it to say there aren't 2 genders in chromosomes. I mean, that's like the Soviets would airbrush people out of pictures and memory hole stuff, 1984 style. Eileen in California, you're on the air.
Oh, my goodness. Hello?
Hey, thanks for coming on with us.
Oh, Alex. Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you.
I was on hold yesterday for about an hour, too. And then I had.
Well, that's it. Give me your name and address. We're going to send you a free T-shirt. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, awesome. I already did.
Oh, good. It's on the way.
Call screener. So I wanted to say, first of all, that was a perfect lead-in. I'm so glad I got to talk to you today instead of yesterday. But the spirit, where the spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. You know, and this war is going to be won on our knees with repentance. And that's what's going to change the course. You know, that's what's going to.
That's right. Arrogance is Satanism. More and more I realize selfishness, arrogance, being on power trips. It's disgusting. It's like when you're around people on a power trip, it's like they're a robot. They're just sitting there with a switch thrown, like they're a wirehead in a PKD novel, just imagining how great they are. It's disgusting. They're not sharing beauty with you. They're not being honorable. They're just jokes.
Yes. And I believe I have a proprietary product that it's like the Excalibur that you were just talking about. I mean, it's a way that we can change the narrative, we can fund and expand the InfoWars, we can arm.
Well, send me a letter or tell me about the product. What is it? What is it?
Well, it's proprietary, but I've already sent you a small portion of it in January through Hazel.
All right, I'll go look. I get a lot of packages, and don't stop sending them. I get hundreds a week, hundreds and hundreds of letters, and hundreds of packages. But I'll go ask Tim Frugier. Overall, where do you see the state of the world right now?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think we need to counter this fake news thing with all of our might, and I want to encourage you to have a fake news contest where the winners can celebrate the 4th of July with you and the crew.
And like fake news contests, like whoever exposes the fake news the best?
Yes, exactly. The things that present the fake, counter the fake news, counter the.
Yeah, we could have like 10 winners or something and fly them all here or whatever. That's a good idea. We should do more fun stuff like that. I don't even have the crew to manage those contests or then properly post them all. And I even have internal contests here at the office and it always seems to go sideways or something. But we'll see. Eileen, thank you so much for the call. All right, I'm doing a few more calls and Rappaport's coming up, and I'll play that Bill guy, the science guy from the 90s, saying there's only 2 genders, it's chromosomes, that's science, to now being a global warming, you know, tranny promoting dumbass. And I'm not against trannies. The point is that's not a woman, that's not a man. That's somebody that wants to be that, fine, but it's not science. There's male ducks, there's female ducks. There's male otters, there's female otters. A clean, toxic-free body is the foundation of true health. Introducing Deep Cleanse by InfoWarsLife.com, a scientifically formulated blend of nanocolloidal zeolites and organic ingredients that aid the body in cleansing chemicals and toxic metals. Using our proprietary multi-step extraction technology, Deep Cleanse is our most affordable all-in-one cleanser with concentrated organic compounds like cilantro, milk thistle, fulvic acid, orange peel, zeolites, and others. Deep Cleanse doesn't hold back. Instead of buying 5, 6, or even 7 different cleansing products, we use decades-old scientific research to put together the Rolls-Royce of all-in-one cleansing. Look, there's a reason Deep Cleanse is the only product on the market that uses our proprietary Spigyrex herbal processing technique. We use only the highest quality organic herbs backed by serious research, and we still bring it to you at the best price out there. If you wish to find Deep Cleanse and experience the all-in-one cleansing, visit InfoWarsLife.com. That's InfoWarsLife.com or call 888-253-3139.
Leading a frontal assault on the lies of the New World Order, it's Alex Jones.
Oh yeah, the Motor City Madman might be running for the U.S. Senate, maybe even governor of Michigan.
Coming to you from the former United States of America, from deep in the heart of Texas, it's Alex Jones.
Yeah! Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on! Oh, yeah, the globalists think they got me. They think they got you. Now they're starting to try to push us off. They're like, wait a minute, we thought we were strangling you. And we're like, no. Oh, we're going down fast into the cold, dark water, aren't we? Let's keep going down together. Because you're not going to hurt the children up on the top anymore. Let's go down. Look into my eyes, globalist. You know the fire humanity carries. Get ready, because we're going to light your ass on fire. You want to fight? You know you've got one, don't you? All right, let's take more calls. Brendan, in the former state of California, now under globalist control. Is that FEMA Region 9 or 10? You're on the air, Brendan.
Hey, Alex, good to talk to you. Yeah, if you guys are behind enemy lines, then we're in conquered territory out here. That doesn't mean there isn't a strong resistance, and there are millions.
Oh, it's very strong. I mean, you have the producers, and then you've got all the dumbasses.
Indeed, indeed. And I'd just like to say, I think the Battle of Berkeley is kind of shows a lot of people that, look, these Antifa folks, they can get the bottom scrapers to come out, but when the, when the Patriots organize, they just rally so much more support.
Yeah, I mean, nothing against 90-pound guys, but you get like a couple hundred 90-pound guys trying to beat up a couple hundred 200-pound guys. It doesn't go too well.
Yeah, and honestly,
I mean, I've seen 5-year-old girls that throw better punches than the anti-fascist people. And I love that they'll hit somebody first, and then you actually break their jaw, and they scream and yell and call for mommy. It's like, dude, Sorry, go ahead.
The average person out here in California, the average Democrat, people just fall into that because it's groupthink. But when it comes down to what they really believe, they're never going to rally behind Antifa. They have no support for Antifa. What you see of Antifa is what they can get out there, and that's it. And when the Patriots rally, well, it gets just larger and larger.
And look how the army of the globalists, the fake leftists, are just like mental patients that, from a escaped mental hospital. It's crazy.
It is. It really is. And I think, it comes down to winning this in the long range comes down to culture. You've said it many times. And culture is where we win the war, period. That's just where we win.
That's right. I forget who it was that said, if you want to defeat the corporate structure, produce art, produce literature, produce culture, produce stuff that isn't cookie cutter, the modern music, the modern empty movies, the modern just vassal nature of it, through the medium. I saw a Frontline special like 20 years ago that admitted all this, back when Frontline was still good on PBS, admitting that the corporations like Viacom and MTV were dumbing it down to make us dumb. It was the message was the medium. They weren't dumbing stuff down because we were dumb. They were dumbing it down to make us dumb. And I know that makes perfect sense, but look at how that's hiding in plain view. You up the message, it ups the intellectual capacity of people. You dumb it down, then that's what we're dealing with.
Exactly. And, you know, what they did and they continue to attempt to do, and they have not been successful, I must say, overall. You know, they've made strides, but they have not been successful, is trying to take away the two bases of our culture, and that is Christianity and Americana. And
which is free market and all the rest of it. Great points. I'm going to come back and talk about a few issues with John Rappaport as we hosting over the next hour. We were going to go 30 hours. We're going like 35, 36, whatever it is. We're going to like past 8 o'clock tonight. Great crews here doing a wonderful job. They want to go further. InfoWarsStore.com. It's a revolutionary act to actually fund liberty, and we need your support. You get great products in the process, huge discounts running through today on the nutraceuticals, T-shirts, you name it, water filtration systems, massive discounts, InfoWarsStore.com. All right, this just in, breaking in the last few minutes, GOP lawmakers head to White House to celebrate as House passes Republican-backed health care bill. So in 105 days, Donald Trump has undone what took Obama 2 years and what we've labored under for 6. Congratulations. And Rand Paul, who I trust, who has scanned over the bill, says it's going in the right direction, has made a lot of changes. It's not perfect, but he hopes that the Senate then tweaks it before it goes back to the House in between the conference committee. Wow. So it's a lot better than the last version. According to Rand Paul, I was just reading his statements. I was just watching him on Fox News making comments 30 seconds ago. The House of Representatives finally passed the latest Republican revised health care bill to repeal and replace Obamacare. GOP lawmakers finally had the votes they needed to pass the bill. The deal will provide an additional $8 billion to help people with pre-existing conditions pay for health insurance. Some lawmakers were heard saying, nah, 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 hey, goodbye after the bill passed. Republicans will be heading to the White House to celebrate the victory with President Donald Trump. Republican lawmakers even had a case of beer standing by to celebrate at the Capitol. A fierce debate over health care took place on the House floor as Republican lawmakers rallied support behind the new health care bill. House leaders called for a vote after winning over some of the last-minute holdouts. We will watch that. Let's put Trump's quote back up there. This is a big deal because they've been trying to block Trump. The Democrats and others have, and they got a lot of the Freedom Caucus to go along with this. If victorious, Republicans will be having a big press conference at the beautiful Rose Garden on the White House immediately after the vote. And that was just a little while ago. We've not seen his response. This is so new. Republican Obamacare replacement bill passes the House. Now, I want to hit a story that's up on Infowars.com. It's getting a lot of attention. Bill Nye, the science guy, in the 90s had a TV show where he said, this is science. There's only 2 genders. Our chromosomes decide it. And that's male and female. Now, that doesn't mean you hate somebody that feels like they're a woman when they're a man, or a woman who feels like they're a man, or vice versa. Netflix edits Bill Nye episode to remove segments saying chromosomes determine gender. That was just a piece for kids explaining why you're a man or why you're a woman. There is an assault on reality here. There's an assault on science. I saw BuzzFeed last week actually debating, is milk racist? Because it's white. Of course, the writers know that's bull. They know it's satire to themselves. But for members of the brainwashed cult, the race-based cult, they're meant to be programmed to accept brown paper bags as racist, green frogs as racist. All language has to be made persona non grata so that you can't communicate with these people. So you shrink the whole system. Now Nye comes in and says last week in his episode, penalize people that have more than one child. Now, they've gone in because his old episodes are on Netflix, and they, like the memory hole in the old Soviet Union, or 1984, in fiction, they have erased it. They've taken that edit out. Now, in the old days, when Stalin killed most of his top people, they would just airbrush them out of famous photos, paint them out of the black and white photos, and then colorize them. So that's what this is now. That's how crazy and controlling and weird they are. First, it's banned cartoons you say are a little racist, and then That's why I love when I'm in Latin America. They still got all the great cartoons on. Latin Americans don't think that's racist. They think it's funny. This is, again, cultural brainwashing that's going on. Let's play the old memory hold Bill Nye science guy. Now he's Bill Nye, savior of the world, like Al Gore. Here it is.
We see a lot of bell-shaped curves in nature. They're normal. You think I'm normal? Thank you for joining me on...
This is the original episode. Now, he says it's male and female.
I'm a girl. Could have just as easily been a boy, though, because the probability of becoming a girl is always 1 in 2. See, inside each of our cells are these things called chromosomes, and they control whether we become a boy or a girl. Your mom has 2 X chromosomes in all of her cells, and your dad has 1 X and 1 Y chromosome.
That is sexist.
Before you're born, your mom gives you 1 of her chromosomes, and your dad gives you 1 of his.
Thought crime.
Mom always gives you an X.
Thought crime.
Dad gives you an X too, then you become a girl.
No.
But if he gives you his Y, then you become a boy. See, there are only 2 possibilities. XX, a girl, or XY, a boy. The chance of becoming either a boy or a girl is always 1 in 2. A 50-50 chance either way.
Thought crime.
It's like flipping a coin. X, you're a girl. Y, you're a boy.
No, she or Z. That's the original episode. Now here's the new one.
Some people are just lucky, I guess.
Here comes Bill Nye. In his creepy Ted Bundy serial killer vehicle. And Bill Nye looks like a serial killer.
When you buy a car, you have to get insurance. We see a lot of bell-shaped curves in nature.
Here's a Netflix version. Where they cut it out. And it just ends. Think how creepy this is. This is beyond 1984. They're waging war on the sexes now.
Thank you for joining me on...
Consider the following.
Consider the following.
Is the Netflix version. They just skipped over the whole part of the 2 genders. This will be a day long remembered. We've seen the end of the sexes.
When you buy a car, you have to get insurance.
We'll soon see the end of humanity. This will be a day long remembered. We've seen the end of Chernobyl. No, I don't want to see the end of Chernobyl. That's a joke. But the mainstream media thinks they can sit there and manipulate the jury pool in Idaho, everywhere, and then they're going to have their victory against us. Well, we need your financial support now more than ever, folks. InfoWarsStore.com, great products you need. Help us be so strong in the face of all these attacks, being sued by a member of the New York Federal Reserve Board and by George Soros' law firm that he founded in the 1980s in New York. Help us be strong. We, the little guys, the little ants, can outnumber the grasshoppers 100 to 1. Super Blue fluoride-free toothpaste has been out for a month. It's back in stock with colloidal silver and iodine and tea tree oil and peppermint. It's very strong. We got more of the children's in bubblegum flavor if you want that doesn't have the peppermint. It's not too strong, but it's still concentrated. Almost 900 reviews, 5.8 stars. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com, or 888-253-3139. We have the Defend Free Speech Mega Special. Get Brain Force Plus, 30% off. Secret 12, Knockout, Winter Sun, huge discounts across the board. DNA Force is back in stock. We also have some specials on water filtration systems. InfoWarsStore.com. This is your war. I know you know that. I want to thank everybody that has supported us, that's prayed for us, that spread our links, our articles, our video. They don't know what to do. We're growing. You're growing. Our movement's growing in the face of it. Now, coming up in about 45 minutes, when the great John Rappaport leaves us, we'll skip this break so he has more time. We got David Knight and Leanne McAdoo coming up. We're going to air the powerful piece exposing the new Al Gore movie, An Inconvenient Load of Horse Manure 2, where he again is the savior of the earth. We have the Alien Covenant analysis where they've now come out and said, okay, we're really telling you what we think. We think aliens are taking over. I told you that 5 years ago. That's what they believe. I don't believe it. We've got that coming up and so much more. We're going to go ahead and just go right through the nightly news with a big extravaganza tonight, 7 o'clock Central, InfoWarsStore.com. as we fund the building of our own independent media and culture system that is defeating the globalists by simply challenging them. Because what they're selling is pure crap. Their ideology is pure garbage. It's the ideology of zombies. InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. Now, John Rappaport of NoMoreFakeNews.com, he's had that URL for 15 years, exposing the fake news. Notice CNN doesn't want to use that term now because it keeps getting used against them. See, they think everything's a one-way street. They're so used to having air superiority, they think they're invincible. You don't have air superiority, globalist. They've jumped the shark trying to shut us down. But, John, I know you got a lot to cover today, but let me just ask you this. Why do you think InfoWars is undoubtedly even attacked more than Trump some days now, myself lied about? I don't think it's that InfoWars is that important. I think it's all the guests and people we have on that are, this whole family, and that they're using us as a test case of how can they destroy somebody who's fearless and hopefully scare other people away. But I don't see that working anymore. John Rappaport, go ahead and take over, my friend, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Alex. No, I think the answer is clear. It's independent media success that they're terrified of. Terrified, and I'll prove it to you as we go along in the remainder of this hour, because when you've got strong, powerful, expanding, geometrically expanding independent media like InfoWars, you've got places that can break stories that will expose the globalists in ways that keep them awake at night. And I'm not just talking about the ways that we all know about so far. I'm talking about ways that haven't even surfaced yet, that haven't come up yet, that are not in anybody's radar yet to a significant extent or enough of an extent. That's what they're afraid of, especially with InfoWars, because I remember talking with Alex on the phone, I think it was 2003 or 2 or something. We ended up doing a show together. So you look at the incredible variety of people that have been on the show that he's interviewed from all walks of investigative life. And the amount of exposure has been incredible. And what are we exposing? What's being exposed? What's being exposed is the false reality that is being painted every day by the globalist forces who intend to control your mind and make you believe that their version of the world and the universe is the only version. That's what they're doing. That's where they're going. That's where they've been going for a long time.
And John, we're going to skip this break and the one at the end of the hour, so you have like 6-7 more minutes here since I cut into your time today. But what do you make of Forbes and AP and Reuters all admitting, okay, aspartame eats your brain, and okay, SSRIs and major medical journals, you wrote about it for InfoWars this week, are causing cranial bleeding and strokes and death, massive increases. And just everything we've ever talked about, because it was already in the medical journals, is now out there. That's why they have to shut us up. Because people know they get their news here years, months, or days before anywhere else. They get that at NoMoreFakeNews.com.
Absolutely. And as opposed to major media where the story just shows up and then sinks like a stone in one day.
We connect it all together.
Yeah, we connect it all together, and we keep pounding on it. Because why not? That's what a sane person does.
Yeah, because, you have a cousin that's 2 years old when you're a kid that takes a vaccine and has a, aneurysm and dies, or you have another family member that takes a flu shot and almost dies, or you have another family member, you kind of get pissed off about dying.
That's right. You look around and you see half the town is burning all around you. So, the mainstream reporter says, well, let's do a piece on this for now, a short piece, and then we'll just forget about it. No, if you live in the town, you're not going to forget about it. Well, we all live in the town, folks. We all live in this, what I'm going to talk about here, especially the medical cartel town, where intracranial hemorrhaging, which means bleeding and dying from a highly touted antidepressants.
Why are you criticizing Death Town? Why are you criticizing Death Town? It's like a third of the sponsorship of mainstream news. How dare you?
That's right. That's right. You can't mess with our sponsors because otherwise we'll go down the toilet. Well, why do you have those sponsors in the first place if they're killing people left and right? Have you thought about that? No, we don't think about that. We just think about surviving. Well, let me tell you something. You're going down the drain. InfoWars and other independent media outlets are taking over. It's happening before your eyes, and there's nothing you can do about it. Doesn't matter what you try, it's going to survive, and it's going to get bigger and bigger.
I remember Piers Morgan, they were going to have me on 3 segments, but as soon as I brought up, don't blame guns. Most of these shootings, people are on SSRIs. They cut the interview right there. I said, your sponsors are selling mass murder pills.
Oh, I didn't see that on the interview. I wonder why. We got to get that comment. I wonder if somebody still got that on a camera somewhere. Or in a
we can find it. Just Google Alex Jones accuses CNN of promoting mass murder pills.
Oh, great. Wow.
Go ahead and take over, my friend.
Okay, Alex.
Listeners, I appreciate all your support. God bless you. I'll be watching.
Yeah, so look what arrived through my window here. I'm trying to figure out where this came from. Can you see this on the camera? This came in the window. A giant pigeon with a sign on it that said InfoWars brought this in the window, and now it's sitting here on my desk. It's called Caveman. It is a product from InfoWars. It's part of the marathon offerings here in defense of free speech, but not just in defense of. You buy products at the InfoWars store, and you support InfoWars. You support the InfoWar for truth as against lies, for waking people up as opposed to mind control. So listen to this. Ending soon, by the way, these mega specials. 30 off Brain Force Plus. That's 30%. 20 off Secret 12. 20 off Knockout. 20 off Winter Sun. 20 off Prostagard. 20% off BioPCA. 20% off Biome Defense. 20 off Living Defense. DNA Force is back in stock and quickly selling out. InfoWarsStore.com. That's InfoWarsStore.com. You buy products for your health. You support InfoWars and the InfoWar to crack the pillars of the fake reality that globalists have been trying to build for us that is falling down all around them, because our numbers are increasing and theirs are in severe decline, decline, decline. The only way that they survived, actually, during the election campaign was because of Trump. Because Trump was such a hot item in the press. All kinds of stations and mainstream news outlets began to see their ratings go up. So what did they do? We got to keep covering Trump. We got to keep covering Trump. It doesn't matter what we say, because our financial survival is on the line. This is the people who bring you the news. This is how they think. This is how they think. Okay, so let's get down to a few. I'm going to start off with a few medical stories, and then I'm going to build to a shattering climax here. So don't go anywhere, okay? First of all, the fact that I am on a media outlet at this very second that has millions of people listening and watching, and I am going to expose major, major crimes of the medical cartel, which is long-term the most powerful cartel of the globalist cartels, speaks to the nature of free speech, no censorship, and the increasing influence and power of InfoWars and other independent media outlets. Understand that the very fact that I'm sitting here doing this, whereas 10, 15 years ago, I don't know how many people would have been listening and watching. Now it's in the millions and growing all of the time. So in the last week, mind you, I've come up with this. New study in England exposes the war on cancer. This was a project. 29 cancer drugs for 47 cancer conditions, okay? Long-term project, funded with maybe $1 billion more. Okay, so what was the result of this? Well, it turns out nothing except poisoning patients, more suffering, more pain. The most they could squeeze out of this was to say that it increased the survival of cancer patients. We're talking about many, many cancer patients by 3.2 months of escalated intense suffering and pain because of the chemo drugs that they were being given. 29 drugs. This is chemical warfare. This is a war crime against the people of England. I hope you folks living in the UK listening to this understand that. That was exposed this week, okay? Antidepressants, SSRIs like Prozac, Paxil, Zoloft, linked to increased risk of skull bleeding, interior of skull bleeding. Let's call that what it is. They call it intracranial hemorrhage. This is a near-death condition. If a person had intracranial bleeding and somehow knew about it, don't know how exactly, they would be instructed to call 911 immediately because death would be right around the corner. So these antidepressants, which have been hailed as the miracle drug, the latest kind of drug to increase feeling good, well-being, bringing people up out of depression, and all of the effects that the public has learned about over the years, mainly due to independent media, such as increased risk of suicide, increased risk of aggressive violence like homicide. Now we can add to the list skull interior bleeding, a condition causing death. Okay, that was another story this week from your medical cartel, All right, new drug for rare childhood disease called CLN2, a rare genetic fatal childhood disease. A new drug called Brineura will be selling for $700,000 a year. Oh, yeah. $700,000 a year. And because of their humane concern, the manufacturer is going to give discounts which will make the average price $486,000 per year per patient. Oh, well, thank you so much. We're down on our knees to you. Oh, yes, indeedy, we are. I'm going to tell you more about this drug, Brineura, after the break here. But needless to say, $700,000 a year is only the beginning of what this scandal is all about. Because is this really, for example, a rare genetic disease, or is it something else entirely? We'll get into that, as well as what can this drug actually do for anybody. So stay with us here at InfoWars.
I am finished. You will not take my right. You go through background checks to get guns. How about Prozac? You know the number one, oh, that's the big sponsor, isn't it? Or that whole class of drugs. Let me ask you a question. Oh, whoa, got to cut that off, don't you? Don't want to talk about the U.S. number one cause of death is suicide now because they give people suicide mass murder pills. Calm down. Your answer is give more money to the psychiatrists and psychologists to put more crazy people on drugs that make them kill people, Pierce.
Let's try and have a debate here.
Yeah.
Answer me this.
Okay, we've got a clip here. This is it. Alex Jones, Piers Morgan. Antidepressants, guns, violence, the part you didn't see if you watched that interview. So watch it now. Roll the clip. You just played it? Okay. I'm back. John Rappaport sitting in for Alex in the fourth hour here. Got a little glitch there. You saw the clip. That was real. That actually happened. That was on CNN. Ah, yes, CNN. We love CNN. They expose themselves all the time. They're into self-exposure. This is not a mental disorder. No, there's no stigma attached if CNN wants to expose itself all the time. Okay, fine. And they just did. But they didn't air that clip, of course, because there Alex was talking about, well, your sponsors are psychiatric drugs, these SSRI antidepressants that cause people to go out and kill other people or commit suicide. It's not the guns. Look at the drugs. You don't want to talk about, do you? No, Piers, you don't want to talk about that because those are the people that are financing you and the network paying your weekly checks. And not just CNN, all over the place. These people, they're restrained. They're in straitjackets. Even if they wanted to break out, they couldn't because of who their sponsors are. But we don't have to worry about that. We do not have to worry about that. So I was talking before the break about a new drug for a, quote, rare childhood genetic disease considered to be rapidly progressing and fatal, okay? And they call this disease CLN2, okay? And the drug that's just been approved is called Brineura, okay? These are medical scandals that I just found in the last week, okay? Now, what about this drug? Well, what does it do? Well, it costs $702,000 a year per patient. And the company, as I said, humanely has decided to lower the price through discounts, and the average price will be only $486,000 per patient. We love you all. Only going to charge you $486,000 per patient per year. Okay, great, fabulous. Now, the drug actually does the following, according to the FDA. It slows down the progression, get this, of one symptom of this disease. And that symptom is the inability to walk. A child who supposedly has this disease definitely has trouble walking. Well, how many episodes of having trouble walking does the child experience in a month or 2 months? Well, we can say that this drug decreases the number of such episodes of not being able to walk. That's all it does. That's it. That's why it was approved. That's why it costs $702,000 a year. So it doesn't cure the disease. It doesn't even slow down the disease, according to the FDA. It's just, we think, yeah, it will decrease the number of episodes of having trouble walking. And for that, you pay $702,000 a year. Not only that, folks, but we now look at some of the symptoms that the FDA lists here. Now, get this. Don't go away. Pay attention. Come on, use your brains. Here are some of the symptoms. Language delay, seizures, lack of coordination, muscle twitches. Does that sound familiar to you in any way? Have you been paying attention to medical news over the last however many years? Those of you in the know will understand that this sounds a lot like vaccine damage. Say that again. Vaccine damage. Vaccine damage. Indeed, you do. But they're saying, oh, there's a rare genetic disease, CLN2. Yes, that's what it is. Vaccine damage. Well. Here's what a kid who's already suffering, really suffering, is going to be subjected to if they take this drug. Every 2 weeks, 90 minutes in the doctor's office with an infusion port inserted in the child's head to receive 90 minutes of this drug, Brineura, plus other drugs that the child will receive at the time every other week, to reduce maybe the incidence of one symptom of the disease at a price tag of anywhere between $480,000 and $702,000 a year, and this is called medical treatment. Okay? All right, so what have we covered here? This is this week's news, right? All right, so we talked about a new study in the UK which destroys the UK war on cancer, torturing patients with drugs, pain, suffering, chemo drugs that are useless, maybe increase the lifespan 3.2 months of intense suffering, price tag on the whole project over $1 billion, total failure. Okay, antidepressants linked to internal skull bleeding condition, death right around the corner. What else? Brineura, this $702,000 drug for the treatment of one symptom of what sounds a lot like a vaccine damage. Yes, indeed you do. And then we had this, 18,000 lawsuits lining up That's 18,000 lawsuits lining up against the very popular blood-thinning drug Xarelto. Yes. 18,000 lawsuits from patients who are now asserting that they've been injured very badly. And the first lawsuit is scheduled to go off this coming week in New Orleans, where the plaintiff, Joseph Boudreau, is saying needed blood transfusions after taking the drug, had to go to the hospital, okay, and had multiple heart procedures done in the hospital, all because of taking this drug. Indeed, you do. That's a week's worth of medical stuff here, okay? Now let's expand the picture. What are we talking about? The medical cartel. The medical cartel. What is that? Medical schools, doctors, drug companies, public health agencies like the FDA, the CDC, the National Institutes of Health, research laboratories, doctors associations like the AMA, medical journals. Okay? Getting the picture? All of this together. All of this together. World Health Organization and so forth. Very, very, very powerful. Now, as I've documented over the years, many, many times, death and destruction emanating from the medical cartel, chapter and verse, the numbers, and so on and so forth. And the members of the medical cartel, including now we can also include media medical reporters, mainstream media medical reporters, stand by and do nothing. The FDA does nothing. The government does nothing. As these drugs maim, kill, destroy lives in America, in the West, in industrialized countries, in non-industrialized countries, all over the world, right? And the vaccines as well, with harmful, toxic ingredients, just like the drugs, like formaldehyde, like aluminum, like mercury, yes, still mercury, known poisons. The medical cartel poisons the world. You want a caption? The medical cartel poisons the world. Behind such sophisticated propaganda that people prefer to believe, still many, many, many people prefer to believe that the medical cartel is an angel flying in on wings to save the planet. That's quite an ability to turn people's minds off and put them on programming to turn that around. So, here's a fact. I broadcast it, written about it many, many times. It's based on a completely mainstream study all the way along the line, no fringe characters, no independents even. Journal of the American Medical Association, July 26, 2000. The review is called, Is U.S. Health Really the Best in the World? You can look it up. Dr. Barbara Starfield was the author. I've interviewed her. At the time, she was a revered and honored public health expert at the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. Okay? Got it? Her conclusion, and she told me that was a conservative estimate. Every year in the U.S., the medical system kills 225,000 people. Okay? So let that sink into your pores and your brain and your cells and so forth. Every year in the U.S., the medical system kills 225,000 people. We're not even talking yet about maiming millions of people, but the death toll. So if you do a little bit of arithmetic and you extrapolate that out to a decade, how many medical killings are we talking about? Pop quiz. Give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. 2.25 million killings per decade in America alone at the hands of the medical system. From the drugs, from errors in hospitals, from treatment in hospitals. Okay? Break that down. Every year in the U.S., according to this review, 106,000 people killed by the pharmaceutical drugs alone, so that would extrapolate out to 1.06 million killings per decade at the hands of the medical cartel. Poisoning, in other words, in the drugs. Poisoning in the drugs. Mainstream media cover this? No. Not at all. Biggest story they would ever cover. Biggest of their lives. This is why all these reporters, when they were still young and had ideals, went to journalism school, because someday I'm going to get a story that's going to provide justice across the board, and it's going to be such a hot story at the same time that I can be deployed for 6, 8 months, a year, 2 years to invade the medical cartel in every nook and cranny and drag people out kicking and screaming and obtaining confessions from them at the FDA, at the CDC, at NIH, in doctors' offices, at the World Health Organization, everywhere. They will finally confess to their crimes, and they'll say, we did nothing about it. We turned a blind eye. You want to call that reckless indifference? You want to call that negligent homicide? I call it what it is. When you stand by and you know this is what's happening, when you aid and abet it, that's a murder. It's murder. It's mass murder. That's what we're talking about. Mass murder, okay? So now I will try to boil down my latest piece at No More Fake News today, which was titled, Why Isn't There a Medical Edward Snowden? And this is what I mean. A consummate insider inside the medical cartel. I'm talking about inside the pharmaceutical complex, inside the CDC, or inside the FDA, inside of the inside, like Snowden was at the NSA, who collects reams of data, emails, memos, documents, you know, the whole 9 yards. I'm not talking about a doctor who left the profession because he was, you know, that's great. Willing to tell the truth for the first time. Not talking about the whistleblower at the CDC, William Thompson. We're talking about somebody who is much further on the inside with data on the whole shooting match, what I'm talking about here, who steps out into the open. And all of this is published, and the entire poisonous globalist medical cartel is exposed to the light of day for the world, the entire planet to see. We have no such person. We don't. I would know. If there is, he's still contemplating coming forward. And the big question, and screw in your brains on this, folks, come on. Why not? Why don't we have an Edward Snowden of the medical cartel? And a lot of people say, well, because he knows he would be killed if he stepped out. Yeah, well, that's true of many areas of whistleblowers who feel that they're risking their lives, and yet they do step forward. So that argument doesn't wash. Sorry. Why don't they step out into the light of day? Well, let me give you the secret and the answer. Snowden stepped out into the light of day with at least a reasonable assurance, if not more, that there was some mainstream journalist out there who was going to connect with him and was going to reveal at least some of what he had taken from the National Security Agency. But in the case of a consummate medical Edward Snowden, there is no such guarantee, because major medical media and major media in general will blacklist, censor, destroy, turn a blind eye to, and never publish. Chances are very high that such a really consummate medical inside whistleblower would never have his data, all the emails, the memos, the documents that prove the collusion, that they're inventing diseases, that they're inventing poisonous cures, that they're lying about phony epidemics in order to force people to go in for vaccinations that are completely unnecessary and toxic. The whole deal, right? The whole deal. the conspiring and all of that, the documents that prove it, there is a very high probability that no major media outlet would go after and publish any of that. And so what is an insider of the dimensions of, say, a Bill Binney or an Edward Snowden at the NSA, who's a medical cartel insider, faced with the prospect of risking everything of his, including his life, against the very strong probability that it will never see the light of day in major media. That's why, take this one to the bank, that's why we don't have a medical cartel, Edward Snowden. And that's why the Rockefeller medicine, globalist medicine, medical cartel is still standing. And what is their plan, and what is their agenda, and what do they aim to do, and what are they doing as we speak? If you don't already know, they have created and they're continuing to expand a womb to cradle to grave system for every human on Earth. Every human on Earth will pass along a bleak line, be diagnosed with 30 or 40 diseases, disorders in the course of a lifetime, and be treated with highly toxic poisons called medicines, which will confuse, debilitate, weaken, destroy, maim that person, meaning every human. That's the agenda, and therefore make the human population of Earth that much more easy to control. The circumstantial case is there for what I just said. The depraved indifference, the collusion to produce poisons that are called medical drugs, that we have documented that are killing gigantic numbers and maiming gigantic numbers of people. And this is going on, and nobody in the mainstream, not only the press, but inside the medical establishment or the federal government of the U.S. or any other government on Earth is willing to step up and expose it, means that we are talking about massive collusion to maintain this cradle-to-grave structure, to expand it, to use it, to control the population of the planet to such a degree that they are too weak to resist. That's the plan. That's what I've been able to talk about for the last 45, 50 minutes on a media outlet called InfoWars that now has millions of listeners and viewers every day. You don't think the seesaw is tilting in our direction? You don't think that this is taking off like a rocket? You don't think that the sun has come up on a new day? Because the day will come very soon, if it is not already here, where a medical Edward Snowden sitting in the middle of the medical cartel will know in his bones and his mind that he doesn't need the New York Times to publish all his documents, doesn't need the Washington Post, doesn't need CBS, doesn't need the Guardian, doesn't need any of that. He can go to InfoWars and any number of other powerful independent media outlets that are now in existence, who will gobble up what he has, present it wholesale to the world, where people can analyze and expose the crimes of the medical cartel for years and years and years to come on a daily basis. That day is already here. It's already here. And that potential percolating Edward Snowden in the heart of the medical cartel, who, according to his sacred oath to do no harm, to aid in healing, to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States and the liberties that it is engendering. My prediction: will come forward, will perceive that he can come forward and get the exposure that he needs in order to present the truth that has been held away from planet Earth about this massive medical cartel operation that includes the drugs, the vaccines, the hospitals, and so on and so forth. The Rockefeller modern medicine that kicked off early in the 20th century with the famous Flexner report that decided that all of the competition, good, bad, and ugly, had to be eliminated, and a new brand of pharmaceutical medicine had to become born. And it did, and it developed, and it evolved into what we have now. A killing machine. Killing machine. The public is going to learn, and is learning as we speak. Key point, folks. The difference between competent medical operators doing the right thing, picking a guy up off the street where he's just been blown apart by a car wreck, bringing him to the hospital and putting him together through correctly applied medical procedures. In other words, acute crisis medicine. That whole thing over there, which is eminently successful when it's done well by competent people as opposed to slobs. Okay? Versus the long-term care scenario that I just laid out for you of the medical treatment over a person's lifetime. We diagnose you with this. We treat you with that toxic drug. You develop new symptoms. We diagnose those symptoms as a new medical condition that requires more treatment with more toxic drugs that causes more debilitating effects that we then diagnose as a brand new condition that must be treated with more and more toxic drugs and so on and so forth down the hill to severe illness, decline, and death. Those are two separate things. And I'll close on this. The genius of the medical cartel is the propaganda wing, which confuses the two and blurs those two elements of the medical complex so that the public believes that one is like the other and the other is like the first and so on and so forth. Absolute falsity, not true. I hope your understanding here has been tracking with me. This is part of the marathon to defend free speech, the truth, the InfoWar, Infowars.com, to help InfoWars survive.
In ancient times, man roamed the earth in a constant state of hunting or being hunted. Introducing Caveman, where cutting-edge science meets ancient super nutrients. Secure your bottle right now at InfoWarsStore.com.